All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new here. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Clark, please don't knock anything over. Thank you. I hope everybody is doing well on this Tuesday afternoon. Wow. Okay, he just doesn't care. Oh boy. Oh boy. Hold on. We got a cat fight going on as soon as we go live. Something's going down. Clark's very excited. Clark's like, why are we streaming in the afternoon? He's messing with Leia. Leia's feeling a certain way right now. Oh, I forgot to put this up on screen too. There we go. Yeah, Clark makes me nervous, man. He's from the streets. He ain't messing around. Okay. And he's back. Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me today. It is an afternoon stream once again. I have been telling you guys all month long that, the schedule is going to be hectic, a little bit all over the place, and it has been. There have been streams that I've missed. My schedule has been extremely inconsistent. I'm happy to report to you guys that should be coming to an end, hopefully after today. Today we got the finishing touches up. As you can see, there is a vent up there now that wasn't there yesterday. That's why I'm streaming late today. Again, I wanted to get back on schedule, but I think today was I think that was it. That's the last of the finishing touches. You might notice there's trim around the door now, trim over here. So we got it like locked in, boys. Okay, we did it. We finally did it. Okay, after all this time. I don't know if that soundbite actually played or not either, but yeah. So we do have some interesting topics to go over and talk about today. We have no extra room, Gordon. We have apparently another PlayStation Studio reportedly getting shut down, and I don't know that people are going to feel too bad about this one because there's not really much to really go off of here. And we have Corey, the legend Landiga. He returns. The legend returns. He comes in early in the stream and drops 5 member gifts for you guys. Let's get some W's in the chat for our good friend Corey here.
I'm no hero. Never was.
I think the sound bites are playing.
Never will be.
Hold on, maybe I need to adjust my audio here. Let me know if that soundbite came through. But Corey, thank you for the member gifts. Yeah, if you guys want to contribute to the channel before we dive into these discussions and these topics, we are completely fan-funded. Yeah, is this your first time seeing the new setup, Corey? Yeah, man. I'm feeling stoked. This is my basement. I really wish I could have taken a photograph of how it looked originally. I showed you guys a couple of before pictures, but that was after the cleanup. I wish I could have shown you what it looked like before the cleanup. I'm stunned. I'm still in disbelief. Like, I cannot process that this is actually what my basement looks like, and I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy. So I'm glad you guys like it too. Let me add those member gifts to the goal here. But yeah, if you want to support the channel, guys, there's a couple of ways you can do that. We're completely fan funded. I can only host Press X podcast or Press Cross if you want to be correct, because you guys make it possible. Consider becoming a channel member. Consider gifting memberships. If we hit 25, we will feed these cats. They're extremely rambunctious right now. You can also drop a super chat or a direct donation. These are all ways in which you can contribute to not just the channel, but the community, and allow things to keep running smoothly here. So thank you to everybody who does that. But yeah, we're going to be talking about another PlayStation Studio that has apparently shut down. And it has been confirmed by Jason Schreier that they have shut down, or they're about to be closed down. And we also have news about their mobile efforts. Apparently, the soundbite was playing and it was very loud. Okay. Sorry about that. Apparently, Sony is scaling back their mobile game efforts, and they're only going to support the games that they recently announced, like MLB The Show, the Ratchet and Clank mobile game. I'm assuming some of these games won't last very long. Is this a permanent change? Yes. If you're talking about the streaming area, yes, this is the permanent change, man. This is the only thing I fear at this point is if there's ever any flooding down here. Hopefully that doesn't happen. You know, that would be awful, but it is a basement, so it's possible that it's happened before. But yes, this is permanent. This is the stream room and the game room. Dig a hole in the corner and put a sump pump in. I might. I do not have a sump pump, no. But maybe I will. I mean, I haven't had flooding in a long, long time. And there was only one time it flooded really bad. But yeah, at this point, if it does ever flood, I'm going to literally cry. Tarnished says, MBG gifted membership. I've been a good, well-behaved person, right? Well, we'll see. We'll see. Corey dropped the first 5 for you guys. We'll see how many more member gifts we get throughout the stream. Tarnished, maybe you will get lucky and receive one. Which studio was shut down? So yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Let me see. Hey, MBG, even though I'm an Xbox warrior, ? I respect that you try to stand with the console you try to enjoy. I got to be honest, PlayStation lately seems to not care, or they just seem to care about making money. Yeah, that's totally fine, man. I know not everybody's on board with what PlayStation's doing these days, but you know, it's interesting because when I set up the stream, I was not expecting to be talking about another PlayStation studio getting shut down. It's very hard to feel anything about this particular studio closure, but we're gonna go over it. I know a lot of people are hearing about this news and they're like, who? Oh, by the way, what is that? That's absolutely wild. I just read the message from Pro Taking Out Trash. That was the person who just said that about, being an Xbox warrior. I don't know what that is, but they immediately got gifted a membership because Paul Ganell comes in and decides to drop 5 more gifts for you guys. So he's keeping it going. He wants the member train to keep rolling here. And Pro Taking Out the Trash got lucky. Unfortunately, Tarnished, not yet. But Paul, thank you so much for that, man.
Appreciate it.
I'm just going to assume these sound bites are playing. I can't hear them, but those are for you. That brings us up to 10. So really good start so far. Thank you guys so much. We'll try to keep the member train rolling, all right, as we dive into these discussions. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. Epic Games suffering mass layoffs, over 1,000 employees laid off. Absolutely insane, considering how big Fortnite is. But it does seem to indicate that Fortnite, it might be diminishing in popularity. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. We have Titus, a member for 27 months. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, I couldn't be there for the last couple of days, so I see the basement set up now, and it really looks great. Thank you for that, Titus. I really appreciate it. P.S. Herman Hulst needs to go, in my opinion. You're definitely not the only one who feels that way about Herman Hulst. And, I do feel like, assuming that Herman Hulst does not get replaced or fired by the time the PlayStation 6 rolls in, he's going to have one more opportunity here, I would say, with the first couple years of the PlayStation 6 generation to prove that he's learned some hard lessons and knows what to do now. And there's, I think, a bigger idea with with not just Dark Outlaw games getting shut down, but also hearing that Sony is pulling back on their mobile initiative. This comes not too long after we just went over multiple reports that apparently Sony is pulling back from releasing their single-player games onto PC and instead they want to make them truly exclusive to their consoles that they're trying to sell. It does seem like many changes are occurring inside of Sony PlayStation in the year 2026, leading up to the year of the PlayStation 6, that being 2027. And Hellbound 1981, another legend comes in. He drops 5 more member gifts for you guys. Hellbound says he wants to keep the member train rolling. And with that 5, he brings us up to 15. So, guys, we are just 10 away now from crushing the first goal. And we can, I don't know, Clark chased Boss out of the room. So I don't know if I'm sure Boss would come back for treats. He always does. So, Hellbound, thank you for that, man. I do appreciate it. And we have Petrov, a member for 8 months. He says, keep up the good work, MBG. Thank you, Petrov. I'll do my best. Thank you guys for supporting. So, not only are we going to be talking about this, we're going to be talking about, like I said, Epic Games. We're going to be talking a little bit about Horizon Forbidden West getting an update, as well as Saros and Take-Two Interactive CEO saying he doesn't think the next-gen consoles will get delayed. But we have Titus coming in. Titus wants to drop another 5 member gifts for you guys. I don't think Tarnished got their member gift yet. We'll see if we can make that happen before the time or before the stream ends. Titus, thank you so much for dropping another 5 member gifts. That brings us up to 20. And guys, we're now just 5 away. Who's going to do it? Who's going to take it home to crush the first goal and feed the beast?
Thank you.
Titus,
Appreciate it.
I'm going to give you, here we go. You said Herman's got to go. Here's what Herman's got to say.
This is an incredibly exciting time
That's
for
what Herman
PlayStation.
has to say to you. MBG, we're eating good. I can't complain. For sure. I think we're eating good, but, you know, it's tough times out here, you know, across the games industry. Finally, PlayStation is going back to the roots. It does seem like that's kind of what they're doing. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That's the vibe I'm beginning to get. Dwayne would like a membership gift as well. Dwayne Johnson. Hopefully, Dwayne. Yeah, well, so far, we already got 20 member gifts on the day. We'll see how many more we get throughout the show. If you're hoping to get a member gift, you know, try to be respectfully engaged in the chat. Make sure you hit the like button. All those things increase your chances of getting a member gift. And also, if you're new, make sure you click any of the member gift icons at the top of the chat. Make sure you're opted in to receive a gift. Okay? Also, Xbox is thinking about bundling Game Pass with Netflix. Huh. I didn't hear anything about that. That would be interesting. I mean, it kind of would make sense, you know, I suppose. Yeah. So the studio that PlayStation shut down, there was, you know, it reminds me of Haven. And that's what's interesting about this, right? Is we're talking about Dark Outlaw Games getting shut down, and yet Haven Studio, the studio that's developing Fair Games, obviously, the game that everybody's hyped for, still around, still standing. But Dark Outlaw Games, I think the most shocking thing about this announcement is that this studio didn't even last a year. It was announced in March of 2025 that this studio was formed. It says here, Dark Outlaw Games is a new first-party PlayStation studio based in Los Angeles, announced in March 2025, and led by Call of Duty Zombies veteran Jason Blundell. Working in stealth, the studio is developing its first project under the Sony umbrella. It is expected to focus on high quality, possibly be a co-op shooter. Leadership, founded and led by Jason Blundell, renowned for his work on the Call of Duty Black Ops series, specifically the Zombies mode, who previously left Activision and his former studio Deviation Games. Studio status, established as a first-party subsidiary of PlayStation Studios, it is currently in a team-building phase, working in the shadows before revealing their specific game project. Development philosophy. Jason Blundell stated the focus is solely on creating the game, rather than fanfare for the studio, with the team looking to create, quote, something to talk about. project potential. Given Blundell's background and the studio's early development stage, it is speculated the studio is working on a high-fidelity first-person shooter or co-op experience. And finally, it says the formation follows the closure of Deviation Games in 2024, which had previously secured a partnership with Sony in 2021. No release date or project title has been announced. And before we continue on here, we have Corey, the legend Landiga. He comes in and he says, you know what? I want to be the one to dunk it. I'm going to drop 5 more to get us to that 25 spot so we can feed the beast. And we will do that, Corey. Thank you once again for that, man.
Appreciate it.
Let's see if we can get Boss back in here, get him some treats. And yeah, by all means, if you guys want to continue the member train, feel free to do so. Obviously, we push to hit that 25. If we can go beyond that and hit 50, that's even better. Every contribution helps. And if we do hit 50, we can actually do some reps now. So I'll throw that up there. He says it's for the boss. It's for the boss. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Pro. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a respectful chat. You know, people being able to agree to disagree. You know, if you want to challenge the argument, that's totally fine. Just keep it respectful. Now, Jason Blundell can be known for closing 2 studios in addition to being the zombies guy because he turned studios into zombies. I feel kind of bad for Jason Blundell, man. That sucks. Yeah, so before... Oh, okay, Boss is here and Clark's here. Let me feed these beasts and then we'll continue. Come on, Boss. I don't know if you guys can tell. I have 3 cats surrounding that cat tree. Clark, Leia, and Boss. Boss is right next to me. I think Clark is scaring him off. You did it for the boss. It's going to be Clark first. First come, first serve. You guys know how it works. And we have Ruben J with a $10 super chat. Thank you, man. He says the studio was hiring for someone with experience with AI stuff like Midjourney and ChatGPT, so I'm not that upset. Imagine the shitstorm that it would cause if it was released. Dodged a bullet, in my opinion. Yeah, that is true. I do also remember seeing a job listing saying that they wanted people with experience with generative AI. And yeah, I was definitely feeling nervous. Sorry. I was definitely feeling nervous when I saw that a little while ago because I was like, yeah, a lot of people are completely against that. And this studio doesn't have a track record. It doesn't have a reputation. It doesn't have, you know, really anything to stand on except for the fact that Jason Blundell is the one that's the head of the studio. But there, you know, there's also the fact that they were developing a live service game. So you combine all these factors, right? It's a new studio with an unproven track record. They're making a live service game for PlayStation, which frankly, you know, most PlayStation players probably aren't asking for. And then finally, you know, you see in the job listings that they're looking for potential developers who have worked with AI or are familiar with it so that they can use that in their development pipeline. I mean, I just can't help but agree that maybe you're right. Maybe Sony really did dodge a bullet here. I feel like it's difficult to mourn the studio in any capacity. I think, you know, if I really had to extend this further, I know it sounds kind of bad to say this. You know, obviously we feel sorry for the developers that, you know, that are potentially going to be laid off. But okay. I know I'm shocked you guys there. Clark, can you go, man? Like, I just fed you. Boss is sitting here next to me. You can't see him. I got Clark in front of me. I'm just trying to host my podcast here. People just want to hear me talk about this a little bit. Can you guys chill out? Boss, come get your treats, bro. All right. That's all you. That's all you, boss. Clark, go. Come on. But yeah, I think you might be right. Dude, ain't no way. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be cat dad and podcast host at the same time. Boss is sitting here. Look at this. Look. Look at him. He's just sitting there, dude. He's like, I want my treats. He's like just letting Clark dominate, bro. What are you doing, boss? All right, I guess boss is just gonna let Clark eat his treats there, but sitting like a champion. Yeah, maybe he's like, you know what? I had enough. All right, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to stay on track here. And Ruben, yeah, just to get back to your super chat, man, I think you may be right about that. A lot of people, like I said, if I had to extend this further, I know it sounds kind of bad to say, but I think a lot of PlayStation players read this as a sign that Sony is once again backing away even further from live service games. And let's face it, a lot of PlayStation players want to see Sony stop making live service games completely. They don't want to see live service games from Sony anymore. Obviously, Sony will always continue to make some type of live service games to some capacity, but yeah, I don't think many people are going to be upset about this. And Be a Med, a member for 27 months at Play Has No Limits. Thank you, man. He says, basement looking good, enjoying the cat combat by the door. Got a flight out of JFK tonight with the wife and cat. Got to drug my cat. Wish me luck, LOL. Well, good luck, man. Yeah, that's rough. Hopefully your cat is going to just, take a nice little nap, chill out during the flight. Won't even know what happened. So good luck, BMed. And thank you for the kind words about the new setup. But I should probably let you guys know where this information is even coming from. So I just gave you the rundown. Clark, bro. Hold on. Hey, get. You gotta go. Get. You're being bad. I've had enough of you, Clark. All right. So I just gave you the rundown of what Dark Outlaw Games is. But now, if you go over to the Gaming Leaks Rumor subreddit, it says Sony shut down Dark Outlaw Games, a small amount of layoffs in the US and UK. No more mobile games aside from announced projects. So this was actually somebody coming out and revealing this information on Reset Era. And the most important thing to highlight here is that Jason Schreier confirmed it. Jason Schreier came out when people were asking, is this true? What's the source? What's going on? Is this totally made up? Jason Schreier vouched for it. He said, yeah, this is true. This is happening. This is what's going on. So it says more details will likely come soon, but the main points, it says Dark Outlaw Games is closing. PlayStation formed them as an incubation studio 1 year under Call of Duty Zombies veteran Jason Blundell. They were still in the early stages of their project and have not shipped anything. This is now the second studio under Jason Blundell that PlayStation has shut down after Deviation Games. Separate from that, there are an unspecified number of layoffs within PlayStation in the US and UK. The number is said to be small. PlayStation is moving away from the mobile games market. They will continue to support previously announced titles like MLB The Show Mobile, Ratchet & Clank Ranger Rumble, and the NCSoft titles. But outside of these titles, we will be scaling back in the space. That part is in quotes, to focus our efforts on a few select high-impact projects. Oh, I just realized. Okay. There. Get out, Clark. Get out. You had enough. Boss is like, finally, it's my turn. So, yeah, this is the official information that has come out. And like I said, if you're wondering, like, who is Deviation Games? I never heard of these guys. They are they are a studio that Sony put together to try to make a live service co-op shooter. My guess here is that if they decided to shut them down after 1 year, it's probably because they weren't making progress. This to me, I mean, look, it's not surprising at this point in time. It seems like not only did Sony go in way too fast, they got way too excited with the live service situation. Not only did they do that, where they put too much resource into it, they seemingly, I don't know, they just like don't know how to form talented teams to develop live service games. I feel like Sony has proven throughout the years that they know how to do this for single player projects. That's pretty much what they're known for. That's what people like from them. But when it comes to live service, they just seemingly don't know what to do. They don't know who to hire, or they're placing bets that seem logical. Like, this reminds me of when they announced Jade Raymond's studio, Haven, which still has not been closed, although she left, right? Like, she basically was fired, and multiple individuals who were part of the formation of that studio, they were let go or left the studio or whatever. And it just seems clear that, Sony almost, I don't want to say all of, but almost all of the bets that they placed in live service, it's just blowing up in their face, man. Even when we talk about Bungie, we've talked extensively about how Bungie, the amount of money that Sony paid for the studio just to get Marathon, dude. And it's no hate towards Marathon. It seems like it's doing okay, like it's holding its own, but that's not why Sony paid $3.6 billion. Now, the difference here is when we talk about Dark Outlaw Games, you could imagine they were a pretty small studio, right? They were a studio that was formed for like 1 or 2 years. Nobody even really knew about them. Even Jason Blundell said that he wanted to keep it quiet and just kind of be in the shadows, which is, looking at how things turned out, probably the wisest thing for them to do. But 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 yeah, it feels like it's hard to be even a little bit surprised at this news. I would have liked to see a good game come out of the studio. It would have been cool, when I heard that they were making a co-op shooter, after seeing the success of Helldivers 2, you think to yourself, oh, maybe they could whip something good up, but apparently they just couldn't get it together, and there is a history here. When you look at where this team came from, Dark Outlaw Games, they did come from Deviation. And Deviation was one of the earliest partnerships that Sony announced for the PlayStation 5. They were also making some kind of co-op shooter, and that studio fell apart to a degree where they just got completely shut down. I have to wonder what went wrong, because it's interesting to me that even after what happened with Deviation Games, even after what happened, Sony still let Jason Blundell form another studio. So they clearly liked something he was doing. These cats and their treats, man, let me tell you. We have Arcus2919. He says, hey, MBG, how long do you think it's going to be until we hear official news from Sony regarding Haven Studios and Fair Games? Well, I mean, you guys hear me okay? For some reason, my microphone got disconnected. Are we good now? These cats are stressing me out. Well, not Leia. Leia's fine. Clark's stressing me out. He's running around going crazy. I think the sound should be back now. I'm just waiting to get confirmation. I think we're good. We're good. Okay. Yeah, but to answer your question, Arcus, when I say that I think Fair Games is next, I think they're next on the chopping block. I do. I feel like it's kind of insane to think that the studio was purchased by Sony in like 2021 or 2022, and then they first revealed their game in 2023 at the PlayStation Showcase with a CG trailer. Nobody liked it. Nobody cared for it. You find out that, Jade Raymond leaves, multiple studio heads leave, and we haven't heard anything. And in between that time, other studios have been shut down. There have been multiple studios shut down, such as Blue Point, right? And that one still is very fresh and stings. But I guess I view it like if Dark Outlaw gets shut down, then what is stopping Haven from getting shut down? The only thing I can figure is that Haven Studio is located in Montreal, I believe. I think that's where they're located, and there's a lot of development talent in that area, and that's the only presence PlayStation really has in that area. So they might just be keeping the studio around for that sake, and they might just figure, maybe Fair Games would need to get canceled, but they can try to make something else instead. That's the only thing I can figure, because I have no idea why I have an idea of why we haven't seen Fair Games. I have no idea why Haven Studio is still around. We saw Firewall get shut down. I don't know. I don't know what I would love to know, why a studio like Dark Outlaw gets shut down and why a studio like Haven doesn't. Because there has to be a reason. Kainsey7, you're saying here, the freaking casuals ruining gaming for hardcore players. Returnal was fine with the difficulty, but now they made Saros a casual game. Yes, I'm gatekeeping because I buy games. Snowflakes don't buy games. Damn. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Saros as well. The good news is, Kane, I think you might have a slight misunderstanding of what's going on with Saros. They're not making it easy. They're giving you options. I don't want to say difficulty options. They're basically giving you modifiers. They'll give you modifiers to make the game more difficult. So if you actually want an even bigger challenge than what you got with Returnal, you will be able to get that with Saros. So I don't think you have to worry too much about that. I think that they just wanted to offer something there where by offering modifiers, people who are struggling, yeah, it's like if you just can't get good, we'll give you an alternative option here. I don't have a problem with that. Clark just may overstep his boundaries. Leia has low patience. Yeah, Leia has no patience. The Haven developers have expertise beyond gaming. A lot of them came from Google. It could be something along those lines. It could be. What's Boss up to? He sneaked into a gap by the table in the door. Wait, was that a Silent Hill reference? No, yeah. Mrs. MVG answered you. We cut that out of the wall. I call it the cat hole. It's literally so the cats can go in and out of the room. That's literally the purpose of it. Because I'll be damned if I'm going to be getting up every 5 minutes to go open and close that door, bro. Not happening. But yes, it's working well. It's working as intended. Tarnished, you're saying Returnal greater than Saros. Can't believe Housemarque made it so you can have options. It won't have its own impact. Like the Souls Miyazaki. MBG, it's clear they don't care about talented developers. Look at what they did to Blue Point. I dare say it's fair game to go for any other studio. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. The contrast between Dark Outlaw Games getting shut down versus a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Bluepoint getting shut down. It feels like a night and day difference. I feel like, yes, when we walk away from a studio like Bluepoint getting shut down, it's okay, Tarnished, I'm not. When we walk away from that studio getting shut down, it does feel like that. It feels like Sony is burning talent, throwing it in the garbage, saying we don't care, we don't need this. But when we get further insight, we got multiple reports regarding Bluepoint. One of the things it reveals, well, it reveals a lot, but a few of the things I should say it reveals is that Sony definitely gives their studios a lot of autonomy. They let these studios kind of do what they want, for better or for worse. And in the case of Bluepoint, with the reports we got about what happened leading up to the closure, it was kind of clear that many developers at Bluepoint didn't want to work on a God of War live service. Many developers at Bluepoint, I would say, probably felt exactly the same way we did, which is we should be doing like some remakes and remasters for like some single player games or some action games or something, But the leadership at Bluepoint seemed to have a different mindset completely. And, they were left in this position, like I told you, where Sony should have stopped them from making the God of War live service. Instead, they said, okay. And then the leadership at Bluepoint said, we got this. A lot of developers at Bluepoint were like, what? And the rest is history. I would assume that it's probably a similar story with Dark Outlaw Games, where Sony brings them in as a first party. Whatever the game is that Jason Blundell pitched, maybe it was the same one that they were working on at Deviation. They say, okay, yeah, we'll fund you. A year of development goes by. Maybe they don't make progress. They don't hit milestones. There's development turmoil. It's just not coming together. And, this is just where I'm trying to get some higher level thoughts out here. I think Sony needs to, I think they are in the process of really stepping back, tightening the belt, so to speak, trimming the fat. There's many different ways you could describe it, but I think they're realizing now, even though it took a lot of this generation, they're realizing that you need to just stick with what works for you. Stay in your lane, so to speak. Some people interpret that as a bad thing, but in this case, I think it's clear that, no, it is a good thing, because here's the thing. You did go out of your lane. You went into many different lanes, and you crashed pretty much every time. But the lane that you came from, your roots, so to speak, what you are known for, what you are good at, you've been doing, you've been doing a lot of things this generation that people have expected, that would be considered the more traditional PlayStation way of doing things. And those things have been rewarded. Those things have yielded good to great results consistently. Meanwhile, everything else that you try to do outside of that has been either a complete disaster or just very unceremonious and underwhelming. And I just hope that, if anything, everything we're seeing outside of the Bluepoint closure, because I still can't wrap my head around that one, but mostly everything we're seeing, them pulling back from PC, now they're pulling back from mobile, now they're going back to exclusivity, now they seemingly are like pumping the brakes on live service games, they're not going to be nearly as aggressive. It gives me hope that they read the room and they understand, like, guys, you tried and that's okay. You don't know till you try, but now you know. So it's not to say that I don't want to see Sony take any risks or any chances in the future. It's just when they do, I think it should be more measured. It should be further and fewer in between. And I think that so much of what we've seen this generation, it really just came off as sheer aggression. We need to hit the ground running, go, 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 you know? And the only really good thing out of it, as far as I can tell, I mean, the only truly, really big success is Helldivers 2. And the great irony of that is that they don't even own that studio. And that studio straight up said they're not working with Sony on their next game. This is where I feel like Sony has put themselves during this PlayStation 5 generation in a completely unnecessary like pretzel. You know, they like pretzeled themselves, man. It's like, why would you do this? And I'm not saying they did so by funding Helldivers 2. It's everything, frankly, that they did outside of it. So it is, well, I mean, that's true. You're saying every studio Sony shuts down, fans lose more games. While that is true, I cannot argue with that fact. This is now one less game we're going to be seeing revealed. My question is, what's worse at the end of the day? You know, what's the lesser of two evils? What we're seeing now, where the game was bad, the game was going to be a failure no matter what, and there's nothing that can be done to save it. Shut it down now, nip it in the bud now, and move on. Close the studio, pretend it never even happened, focus on the future, or let it just kind of carry on, you know, to just meet the same fate anyway, except this time everybody's going to be angry. Delete all the Concord likes. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but MBG Alinea Analytics just posted about marathon splits. Speaking of Sony Live Service, let me go check this out. Where can I find this? Or do they have a Alinea Analytics? Here we go. Oh, interesting. So it says Marathon has sold 1.2 million copies across Steam, PS5, and Xbox. This is according to Alinea Analytics estimates. It hasn't exactly made the splash Sony and Bungie wanted, even if the game underneath the surface is a masterwork of design. High praise. Looking at the split between Steam, PS5, and Xbox, Steam is clearly the main platform for Marathon, accounting for a little under 70% of the audience, so more than 800,000 copies sold on Steam. Meanwhile, PS5 takes about 19%, with roughly 217,000 copies sold, and Xbox, including console, PC, and cloud, accounts for a little bit over 11%, or 133,000 copies sold. Marathon is technically a first-party Sony title, so seeing the home console struggle to break 20% of the volume is a notable data point for the ongoing platform-agnostic debate. PlayStation Studios' online games will almost certainly continue being multi-platform, which I agree with. On topic, I'm seeing if there's any. Okay. I think that's, well, they're going even deeper here. On Steam, Marathon's average playtime has climbed up to 27.8 hours, significantly outpacing the console average of 16.5 hours. Even more telling than the averages, 22% of the Steam audience has surged past the 50-hour mark, and nearly 7% have already logged over 100 hours. PlayStation and Bungie are at a crossroads here. They can, number one, double down on Marathon with a long-term Rainbow Six Siege or No Man's Sky style recovery. Number two, they can shift focus towards the inevitable Destiny 3 or another project. I'm pretty sure we heard that Destiny 3 is now in the early production phases. And that's it. That seems to be basically the two options they're proposing here. I got to ask you guys, because I actually don't remember. Is crossplay enabled on that game between console and PC? By the way, as we continue this conversation and these discussions. Do me a favor, if you haven't, take a moment, hit that like button. I see we're sitting at 91 likes. Let's see if we can bump that up to 100. I'd really appreciate that. Tarnished, you're heading out. You're going to go take a nap. Well, I appreciate you stopping by. We tried to get you a member gift. Maybe it's not your day today. Sony is doing what they told their investors, fail early and cheaply. That's true. That is true in the case of Dark Outlaw games. It's unfortunate, you know? I mean, I just can't help but wonder, like, what if Sony just said, all right, why don't you guys make a single-player game? You know? Like, I know it's still risky and expensive, but I don't know. I think people would be on board with that. Give them a shot. I want to check this real quick. Does Marathon have crossplay? Marathon features full crossplay and cross progression. Can you turn crossplay off in Marathon? Yes, you can turn off crossplay. Okay. Interesting. But only if you're playing on a console. So, I'm thinking about that because I'm looking at these Marathon player splits and I'm like, okay, so if only 20% of the people who bought Marathon sells 1.2 million, only 20% are playing on PlayStation, how many of that 20% have crossplay turned off? All right, so Zubitech just posted on Twitter, PlayStation Studios currently working on live service games. Guerrilla Games, Horizon Hunter's Gathering, Media Molecule, multiplayer live service. Wait, what? Wait. Media Molecule's working on a live service? Did they confirm that? I don't recall that being confirmed. Oh, okay. Job listings from 2022 and 2023 indicate the studio was looking for experts in live service games for a new unannounced project. Oh, wow. I did not know that. How did I not know that this whole time? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Haven is working on Fair Games, and Team LFG is working on Project Gummy Bears. Dude, I'm going to be honest. There's only one game out of these 4 live services that I would be okay not seeing get canceled, and that's Media Molecule. I would like to see Media Molecule. I think that they deserve at least one more chance. If Team LFG closed down, I wouldn't care. If Haven closed down, I wouldn't care. And if Guerrilla Games canceled Horizon Hunter's Gathering, I wouldn't care. See, this right, it's interesting to look at that list because this is why I think like Sony really should just clean this up very quickly before we go into the PS6 generation. You have MLB The Show, you have Gran Turismo, you have Helldivers 2, and eventually I'm sure you can convince Arrowhead to make Helldivers 3. I'm sure they would want to do that eventually. And you have Marathon, and in the future, Destiny 3. Let the rest go, man. Like, you're good. I think that's good. I think that's a good live service portfolio for Sony to have going into the PlayStation 6. And, I don't really think these other titles, and Marvel Tokon as well. I keep forgetting about that one. Not made by a first-party studio, but still a live service nonetheless. I feel like maybe Sony should get rid of Haven, Team LFG, and dude, I have to admit, when I look over this list, and I don't want to harp on this too much, I know people get tired of it, but it just got me thinking once again, like, how is it that Guerrilla Games made the decision that Horizon Hunter's Gathering is their next big game? Like, nobody's really working on Horizon 3 right now because they're working really hard on this game. I'm like, dude, I see a bad outcome for Guerrilla Games because of this. I think Guerrilla will be fine as a studio. Obviously, Guerrilla's not going anywhere. But I could see this being a big mistake for them, where at a time when PlayStation fans are like, all right, Guerrilla, we're ready to see Horizon 3. And they're like, well, that's too bad. Horizon 3 is not ready to be shown for like another 3 years. Here's Horizon Hunter's Gathering. Not good. Not good, man. If Horizon Hunter's Gathering looked very different and looked more in line with Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, I would feel differently about it. But every time I feel okay about life, I think about Hunter's Gathering and everything comes crashing down. Smurf, I'm sorry to hear that, bro. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. I'm sorry I did that to you. You probably weren't thinking about it until I mentioned it. I apologize. That should have been the live service studio Sony acquired, Arc System. Sony just failed to identify good live service studios. I mean, yeah, when it comes to purchases they made, right? Like studios we should buy to support their live service games and bring them in-house. I do agree with that. And the one studio that they absolutely should have bought, which is Arrowhead, maybe they did offer to buy them, but Arrowhead turned it down. But yeah, that just didn't happen. Raven, you think they should save Horizon 3 for the PS6? It would be a huge leap. Yeah, that's the one upside. That is the one upside, I would say, to them putting Horizon out later, you know? You're telling me all 300 people at Guerrilla are working on Fortnite Horizon? Well, that's what we heard from Jason Schreier. When Horizon Hunter's Gathering was revealed, he did confirm that the vast majority of developers at Guerrilla are working on it and that Horizon 3 kind of is taking a back seat. Like, I'm sure they have a small team working on some parts of Horizon 3, but I would like to get more clarity on that from Jason, because to me, it's like, are we talking about one of these situations where it's halfway done or like a fourth of the way done and it'll come out in like 4 years or 3 or 4 years? Or is this like a situation where it's like, it's not even in pre-production yet? Like, it just doesn't exist at all. Because to me, that would be shocking. It's like, yeah, it doesn't exist at all. I hope that's not true, because that would be some of the worst mismanagement so far that we could have seen from Sony. So I have to imagine Horizon 3 exists in some capacity. It's just not very far along. Yeah, I think we're going to get Fizzant before Horizon 3. Does Sony launch PS6 with a live service, possibly Fair Games? If we do get a next-gen console next year, they're going to have cross-gen games. I'm going to tell you, here's what I'll tell you. If Sony has any wisdom whatsoever, if Sony has any actual awareness, which I think they do, when you reveal the PlayStation 6, you don't show a single live service game. The only thing is like a PS6 version of Helldivers 2, maybe. But no, dude, like, Sony cannot risk that. That would be one of the dumbest things they could do. So a little game dev note. You don't throw everyone on a project in pre-production. You need to start with a small concept level and expand as you move closer. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I imagine that's probably where Horizon 3 is, like maybe like further along in the pre-production phase. I guess the assumption is that like once Horizon Hunter's Gathering is completely wrapped up and out the door, the entirety of Guerrilla, it'll be all hands on deck working on Horizon 3. You're saying you're depressed about PlayStation single-player games' future now? I wouldn't be. I think that, to be clear, I think the future of PlayStation Studios still looks bright. I just think that there are still lingering mistakes that need some correcting going into the PlayStation 6 generation. I talked to you guys yesterday about how, people tend to make it sound like Sony doesn't have any games releasing. Meanwhile, we're going to be getting Saros and Wolverine. And I know it's, to a lot of people, it's only 2 games, but they're going to be great games. And, I just think I want to see Sony continue to double down on that. I want to see Sony more focused on, like, what is it that we do well that we should continue to reinvest in? And you could definitely make an argument, I would say, now that we're approaching the end of this generation, you could reasonably make the argument that Sony had the opportunity coming off of the PlayStation 4 generation to make a lot of investment in a lot of different areas. They were making more money than ever. The PlayStation brand is riding high. They have more momentum than they ever had. And it was also at a time back in like 2020 and 2021, everybody was spending money. The money was flowing and investments were being made. You could absolutely make the argument that the biggest mistake Sony made this generation by far was, rather than reinvesting in single-player games, single-player studios, and single-player development teams and projects, they decided to scatter that investment mainly across live service, but also mobile and PC development. And there's maybe an alternate reality where instead of doing that, they said, we're going to go absolutely crazy, where if we make investments now in 2020 to double and triple up, or triple down, I should say, on single player games, single player studios, and it's all about the single player games to feed, to feed the PlayStation player base continually, where we would be looking at a situation potentially where it's not just Sony putting out 2 big games a year, single player, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe not all big, maybe 3 big, 1 smaller. That to me will forever be the major negative aspect excuse me, of the PlayStation 5 generation. Is it's not that it was, this is just my opinion. I know people disagree with this, but it's not that the PS5 generation was bad, because Sony released a lot of fantastic games this generation, and they still are. It's just about what could have been. It's how much better it could have been. And the only the only thing that seemingly got in the way of that was, bad decisions made by the leadership, where they're like, no, we have to like triple down on live service. And it's like, I have to be honest, I kind of understood it at the time, because I'm like, I guess that makes sense. But when you start to see like how it all played out, and it's like a crash in slow motion, Yes, Dark Outlaw Games has been shut down. That's the first party PlayStation studio that, Sony has not officially announced it, but Jason Schreier is confirming that the studio is shut down. I don't even know if Sony's going to say anything. Sony barely even acknowledged the existence of the studio. So, they might just kind of sweep it under the rug. Checking to see what some of the reactions are to this. One of the first things I see is somebody saying, I won't be surprised if Haven Studios is the next one to shut down. I wouldn't be surprised either. No. Not at all. Sean Layden predicted this would happen when he said there was too much consolidation in the market. And even his old shop will learn that it's easy to buy a thing, but it's a lot harder to run it. Well, excuse me. Well, this is where, seeing all these decisions and strategic pivots being made, it's interesting to think that we are watching Hideaki Nishino at work. Keep in mind, Herman Hulst, he does run the PlayStation Studio business, but he still has to report to Hideaki Nishino. And so Hideaki Nishino clearly gave Herman some kind of, like, here's what we're doing, bud. This is the direction we're going in. These are the changes that are being made, and you do what you got to do. But just make sure you're in alignment with that. And my read on this, it's a more positive one. It's one that I think PlayStation players have been asking Sony to do. Like, please, like, we just want you to go back to just being what you're known for, what you're good at. And just focus on that. Make that the focal point of everything you do. Focus on your own expertise. And, my read is that is what Hideaki Nishino is doing. An ex-Call of Duty developer that helped with zombies had a studio shut down 2 times, basically. Yeah, pretty much. Although, it's obviously not just his fault, of course, but yeah. Yeah, it's not great. It's definitely not great. Not a great look for him. Well, let me bring the chat in front of me here. You blame Sean Layden? Interesting. It's an interesting take. Nishino wants the Concordian timeline to end with the PlayStation 5 gen. Indeed he does. The Concordian timeline needs to end. Although I will say, I don't think it's fair to put Marathon in that Concordian timeline. I mean, in terms of scale, like how much investment went into it, I could see it, but it seems like it's going to do okay, ultimately. Like, I could see Marathon being supported for like 3 to 5 years, and it'll be okay, The player base could maybe dwindle over time, but it's clearly not like some kind of colossal failure where it's like, throw it out in the garbage with Concord and High Guard or something. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we've all moved on from Concord, but Concord, you know what? I feel like High Guard is even more shocking than Concord because High Guard came after Concord. Concord, I think people will always reference it because it really was like, it really was a unbelievable moment for PlayStation, for Sony. Like, I think Concord represents something that, like, this isn't possible for Sony. Like, of course, Sony will mess up. PlayStation will screw up. But they'll never do something that bad, right? They could never pull something like that off, and they did. And I think it's just, it's done, it's over. I think I don't want to say it's irrelevant. They shouldn't forget about it. But that's why I think people continue to reference it because it's still like, wow, that really did happen, didn't it? But, it was a very hard lesson learned. I put out this post on Twitter not too long ago. Hold on. Where is it? Okay. So I put out this post. I said, it seems like PlayStation is making a lot of changes this year in preparation for next gen. Some hard lessons learned during the PS5 generation, new leadership now in place and wanting to be as well positioned for the PS6 generation as possible. And that's kind of my read on this. I came to that conclusion after seeing this news of Dark Outlaw shutting down, because it just, that's what it kind of felt like, you know. It just felt like it's bad to see a studio shut down. Obviously you don't want to see that. You want to get good games from studios, but the timing of it, like the fact that all of this is happening, you know, the year prior to when Sony is apparently going to announce the PlayStation 6, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. They have to reposition themselves. They have to reorient themselves. They can't have this dead weight going into the PlayStation 6 generation, man. Sony will have opportunity in the future. I don't know when exactly in the future, but there will always be opportunity for further investment, whether that's building new studios, buying new studios, forming new development teams. That will always be there, you know. But I really think what Herman Hulst specifically needs to do, I think Hideaki Nishino, him running the ship, him looking at everything from a high level, I think, I don't want to like jump to conclusions, but I'm starting to get the feeling like he knows what to do. He understands the assignment. The assignment is get PlayStation back on top. And by on top, I don't mean like financially. I mean like just get back to what people, get PlayStation back to a place where people are excited to talk about it, you know, where it's mostly good, you know, like people aren't feeling so down about it. And I think part of that really just comes down to like you need to, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but it's hard not to just be on repeat here, where it's like just stop, like don't do a lot of the things you did this gen. Do half of the things you did this gen, and the other half avoid like the plague. Okay? And replace that other half with just, again, the good things you did this gen, double up on that going into the PlayStation 6. That's why I do believe when we do get the eventual PlayStation 6 announcement or like a PlayStation 6 showcase, it's like, yeah, I better not see Haven Studio there. I better not see Team LFG. I better not see live service games announced, because that's not what any person going into a PlayStation 6 showcase wants to see. What we want to see are amazing looking single player exclusives. That's what we want to see. And I do hope that what we're seeing right now is, you know, a reflection or a message, I should say, that's basically being slowly sent, which is, yes, we know that's what you want to see. We are going to act accordingly, prepare accordingly. That's what you're going to get. It's not hard. I feel like it's not difficult. I think that, you know, there's just certain knots that have to be untangled, knots that maybe Jim Ryan helped create, Herman Hulst helped create. You know, Herman's still there to try to maybe untangle some of those knots. But that could potentially be what Dark Outlaw Games is, you know, where they started as Deviation Games. Sony made an investment. They spun up a partnership. They worked on a game for 3 years. Sony spent a lot of money on it. Nothing came of it. Maybe they didn't want to give up that investment completely, so they gave him a second chance. And in the end, it just wasn't meant to be. And it's like, just can't help but wonder, like, what if instead you just like partnered with a single player studio? Something tells me we would be playing their game right now, you know, or their game would be ready to reveal for the PlayStation 6. That's the type of logic I'm talking about here, where it's like, I really hope that's what Hideaki Nishino is getting back to. It seems like he is. So, you know, we'll continue to monitor the situation and see what else happens with that. Before we continue on the conversation here, though, guys, please do me a favor. If you are enjoying the podcast episode and if you're, enjoying the live stream, take a moment, hit that like button. It helps with YouTube's algorithm. Let's take a moment and talk about Epic Games. Epic Games is laying off 1,000 employees today. This was first revealed by Jason Schreier once again. He says, breaking, Epic Games is laying off more than 1,000 workers today, sources tell Bloomberg News. Story hitting shortly. Epic said in a blog post Tuesday morning that due to a downturn in Fortnite, the company is, quote, spending significantly more than we're making, and we have to make major cuts to keep the company funded, end quote. This is the second major layoff at Epic since 2023, when it cut 830 employees. This comes almost immediately after they announced that they were increasing the price of the currency of Fortnite, V-Bucks. There's also a follow-up here. Hold on. We have a write-up from Push Square, excuse me. With over 1,000 job cuts at Epic today, we're beginning to hear from some of those affected. One startled employee has taken to X to share a story stating they're confused and bewildered by the layoffs. Ex-Fortnite principal engineer Evan Kinney wrote, I spent the past week debugging the rivalry system while recovering from pneumonia. And just in the past few days, I've had multiple directors tell me how much they appreciate everything. I've done so much for this company and our games. Solid performance reviews every time, with multiple people mentioning how critical I am, what an impact I make across multiple teams just to be thrown out. I don't get it. In a statement earlier today, Epic said that it's spending significantly more than it's making on live service Fortnite, and has dramatically reduced staff in response. As a consequence of the layoffs, it's also stripping back some of the Battle Royale's superfluous modes like rocket racing. Somebody else says, guess who got laid off today? I've done so much, so many late nights, so many weekends, so many live events, competitive reviews, new features, new seasons. Yeah, man, it says Fortnite is still a juggernaut, but it strikes us that it's bloated to a point where it simply can't sustain itself. Pair that with a wider economic downturn, and you get the outcome that we see today. Man, I'm curious what you guys think of this one, because it's like, is Fortnite still a juggernaut? Is Fortnite in danger? Is it finally happening? Here's the thing. I thought about this earlier. I thought to myself, maybe this is, the layoffs are not a good thing. The layoffs suck. But I'm just thinking, like, the idea of the reign of Fortnite, is it coming to an end? And at first I was like, that would be a good thing, till I realized, actually, no, it's just, if Fortnite goes down, something much worse is going to take its place. That thing is called Roblox. In fact, it's already happening. And, yeah, so I don't know what to think about that one. But kind of crazy, man. Kind of crazy. Laying off 1,000 employees. I thought Fortnite was untouchable, man. I thought Fortnite was invincible. We have Street Shadow 20 with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, man. He says, MBG, I need some help here. I'm trying to help someone confirm Dark Outlaw was created and owned by PlayStation. Yes, Dark Outlaw. So, like, let me see. I'll send you the link. Oh man, they don't even have a description though. Yeah, so they removed it. If you go to PlayStation's website under PlayStation Studios, Dark Outlaw Games is there. I'll send you the link. But they scrubbed there's just nothing else. It's just literally the studio logo, which maybe is another indication that, yeah, they're getting ready to shut down. But yeah, no, MBG, they weren't owned by Sony. They were. No, Lady Gamer, they were. They are. Dark Outlaw Games is a first-party Sony-owned PlayStation studio. I think you're getting confused with Deviation Games. Deviation Games was not owned by Sony. Deviation Games was a partnership. But then Deviation Games was shut down. And then Sony talked to Jason Blundell and said, "Hey, we'll give you your own studio." I mean, you can look it up. You know, I'm not going to argue with you if you don't believe me, but you can look it up. They are owned by Sony. They're a Los Angeles-based studio. All right, let me see here. Yeah, so I mean, look, man, when it comes to this topic about Fortnite and the layoffs, I feel like all I can really say here is we are definitely watching things change before our eyes. You know, we're watching a company like Epic Games. Like I've seen Fortnite hit the highest of highs in this industry, and I've done so confused. I've done so feeling like I don't get it. And it's okay. You know, I don't need clearly I didn't need to get it. I still don't need to. It's like this is a new generation of gamer, so to speak, that's engaged with this game. You know, Fortnite is the thing. And I always just kind of, I guess what I'm a little bit surprised by here is I really did think like Fortnite is invincible, right? I kind of felt that way. I'm like, Fortnite can't start to go down. It's too big. But I guess, I don't know. I guess it's just one of these situations where no game is invincible. None. No game is infallible, right? Like they can always suffer losses. They can always start to go downhill. And I don't want to say this is the beginning of the end for Fortnite, because Fortnite I don't think will ever go away. But what I feel like I can say is looking at how severe this is, where they raise the price of V-Bucks. They say because you guys got to help pay our bills or whatever. And then they announce 1,000 layoffs because they're saying we're spending way more money than we're making. And it all signals a massive downturn, and people are walking away from Fortnite. Less people are playing it. Less people are spending money on it. I do think this is the beginning of the end of Fortnite's reign. That's what I think it's the end of. Where, again, it's not going away. It's not going anywhere. But I think from this point forward, it's just going to be a slow downhill, like, give it 5 years. And in 5 years from now, Fortnite will be a shell of what it once was in terms of how many people are playing it, how relevant it is in the games industry. And I think one of the reasons I am kind of looking forward to that, it's not because I'm a hater, but it's mainly because it's been so painful and just frankly annoying to see that so many studios for like a decade were like, we need to do what Fortnite's doing. We need to copy Fortnite. And it's like, if the ultimate outcome of Fortnite is it had its time in the sun and now its time is up, what does that say about I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not that live service games are a trend. Live service games are not a trend. They're a permanent fixture of the games industry now. But the idea of finding that level of success in live service, it is, To an extent, it is a trend because it bounces from one thing to another. You know? You're saying Xbox did everything correct 100. They gave what everyone wanted. I wish Sony would do that. That's all I'm saying. I want ponies to have their games. I gotta admit, man, that's a crazy take. Xbox did everything correct 100. Yeah, man. Yeah, for definitely. Totally, bro. Sony, where are my games? Where are my games? It's good thing. Yo, you're lucky Rich Rod ain't here right now. Reverse trolling? We're all on the same side. Console wars just propaganda. All right, yeah, I can agree with that. Smurf is like, uh-oh. Here we go. MBG seemed a little too calm during the stream. No, but I had to cover this. I had to cover, even if it was just for a little bit, this situation with Fortnite because, I mean, look, I don't want to call it too early. All I can ever do is just give you my best guess, my best assumption based on what I know. But I do feel like what we're looking at is the beginning of the end of Fortnite's reign and dominance. And the only real benefit to this, again, it sucks that people have to get laid off and it has to be so brutal. But the only good thing I can see extracted from this is that maybe now video game studios are waking up and realizing we should stop trying to copy Fortnite. I just fear now, though, like I said, that something else worse will take its place where it's like, so instead of trying to copy Fortnite, we're going to copy Roblox. GTA Online 2 taking over? It might. Now, that's something I can get on board with, potentially. But, you know, for how long until it gets ruined, right? But we are going to continue with these topics. There's something else I want to let you guys know about. Before we move to the next topic, you guys know what to do. Take a moment, hit that like button. If you guys want to support the channel as well, we hit 25 members today. If you want to continue to contribute to that, feel free to do so. Every contribution helps. Super chats, direct donations, it's up to you. Feel free to support as we continue our discussion. But we have Horizon Forbidden West getting a patch out of nowhere. I was actually a little bit surprised to see this, but once I saw what the patch was, I'm like, I see what you're doing, Gorilla and Sony. I see what you're doing. They changed the graphics of Horizon Forbidden West. The patch changed the graphics. Now it looks like the same art style as Horizon Hunter's Gathering. So if you go boot up Horizon Forbidden West, it now looks like Hunter's Gathering. I'm kidding. That's a joke. I'm kidding. I feel like somebody's going to take that seriously. That's not what the patch did. We have Pikachu 4945 with a $5 chat saying Nintendo cutting Switch 2 production by 30% due to weak sales. Yes, we are going to discuss that. That's definitely on the list of topics for today's podcast episode because it's been a little while since I've talked about the Switch 2, but this is interesting, man. Like, I'm not sure what to make of this. We will discuss that soon, though, okay? So, Pikachu, hang tight. That's on the docket. I'm sorry that I scared you, Davis. And Smurf, I'm sorry. No, the real news here is Horizon Forbidden West did actually get a patch. However, the patch, it's patch 1.30, it adds the power saving setting to Forbidden West. And this pretty much gives me the opportunity to once again talk to you guys about what the power saver setting actually is. I know some of you already know this, but just as a refresher, or for those who don't know, Sony has, if you were to develop a game for PlayStation and you're in the PlayStation SDK, right? The development environment. There are basically 3 versions of your game you can make for PlayStation, 3 separate SKUs you can develop for. You can develop your game for the base PlayStation 5, which obviously you do. That's where you start. Then you can develop it for the PlayStation 5 Pro, which pretty much all developers do now, where you add, some extra pro features and take advantage of the extra horsepower there and what it offers in PSSR. But you also have the power saving setting. The power saving setting is important because basically what you're looking at is the PlayStation handheld setting. That's what it is. When you see when you see a developer or a development team announce that, hey, our game supports the PlayStation power saving mode, what they're pretty much saying is our game will be playable natively and is optimized to be playable on the upcoming PlayStation handheld. That's also why you don't see many studios, I should say, announcing this feature, because most developers don't know about it. Or if they do know about it, they just don't care enough right now. And what I mean by that is Sony has not given developers dev kits of the PlayStation handheld, nor have they informed developers that they are making and releasing a PlayStation handheld. Now, it has leaked out that Sony's doing this. We all know that they're making a PlayStation handheld, so presumably developers already understand this. But what Sony is seemingly trying to do here is have a big library of games ready to go the moment they announce the handheld. If you're wondering why Sony hasn't given out PlayStation handheld dev kits to even their first-party studios yet, or third parties, it's because they don't want things leaking out. The moment they give out a PlayStation handheld dev kit, it's going to leak. It's going to leak all over the place. You're going to see it online. And that day is going to come probably in the, let's say in the next 8 to 9 months, give or take, maybe a little bit longer than that. That's going to happen. But right now it's too early. So because Sony understands that it's imperative that you get games up and running on your handheld, because that's the thing. If people are going to be interested in buying this handheld, they're going to be interested in playing games natively. I'm sure the PlayStation 6 handheld, you'll be able to stream games just like you can through the portal, but that's not what people are going to want to do. So if you listen to Moore's Law is Dead, I think a couple of months ago, he said that Sony internally is a little bit annoyed that developers seem to be practically ignoring the power saver setting. And Sony's getting a little bit annoyed because they were hopeful that devs would, I don't know, I guess be all over it. Yeah, we're definitely going to make our game, compatible with the power saver. And my read on that is I think Sony is make sure you guys make your game compatible with the PS5 power saving setting. Yeah, you get what we're saying? Are you picking up what we're putting down? And I feel like devs are no, I'm not doing that. And Sony's do you need me to, do you want us to spell it out for you? That's the only thing I can figure, because it's I think developers do want to have their games running on the upcoming PlayStation handheld, but I think maybe a lot of developers don't realize that that's what this power saver mode is. It's actually like a Trojan horse, so to speak, where it's a Trojan horse for the PlayStation handheld. So all this is to say that Horizon Forbidden West is now another game that takes advantage of this. In other words, if you are somebody who's looking forward to the PlayStation 6 handheld, when you purchase it, you should be able to play a very well optimized version of Horizon Forbidden West day one natively on this handheld, and it should look great. And I also do want to say that there are other games that support it. Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yotei, God of War Ragnarok, Days Gone. And I think there's a few others, but it's a really, really small list right now. Josh Z with a $10 super chat. Thank you for that, Josh. He says, I'm the Nintendo guy here. The person reporting that about Nintendo has a track record of being wrong. I'm not believing jack shit until Nintendo's next financial report, MBG. And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, hold on. I want to check that report. Wait, what the hell? Hold on. I'm getting a survey from PlayStation. We'd love your feedback. How likely are you to recommend PlayStation.com to a friend or family member? What? PlayStation.com? I don't know that I'd recommend that to anybody for any reason. Maybe I'm not taking that survey. I need to get out of here. I need to find this report. I need to find the source of the Nintendo report. Hold on. Another Bloomberg. Let me guess. Let me think who it is. Does his name end with Makazuki? Ah, yes. No, see, Josh, I don't blame you, dude. I know who this guy is. This Bloomberg reporter. He's like infamous. Takashi Makazuki. He's always reporting on Nintendo and Sony, and he only reports bad news, dude. And yes, he is wrong half the time. You actually, Josh, I had a feeling when I saw you say that, because I think you said that earlier in the chat too. I had a feeling that I'm like, tell me it's who I think it is. And lo and behold, it is. So you deciding to wait until Nintendo's actual financial report, it could turn out to be true. I mean, it's, this is one of those coin flip moments where let's wait and wait and see. But yeah, dude, I remember this guy. He posted so many different reports on Bloomberg about PlayStation that like half of them turned out to be just literal nonsense. But MBG collabing with Nintendo. But yeah, I'm going to transition to that topic in just a moment. I do have a couple things to say about it. Just to close out this topic about Horizon Forbidden West, it's nothing major. I'm trying to incorporate some smaller news stories into the podcast episodes because I know some people still appreciate it. But, again, this was just another opportunity for me to remind everybody that anytime you see a game announced to support PlayStation 5's Power Saver mode, it's pretty much telling you, a translation is this game will be playable natively on the upcoming PlayStation 6 handheld. The only real question, there's a lot of questions still left to answer, but one of the bigger ones is whether or not developers are actually going to get on it and start actually making low power modes, or if maybe Sony has just accepted that developers are not going to start doing this until we actually put out the dev kits for the PlayStation handheld. They're not going to do the low power mode. They're just going to wait until they actually have the proper spec in their hands, which makes sense. I can't really blame developers for that. It's ridiculous, especially because it contradicts other information. So yeah, Bloomberg is generally considered reliable, but there are different reporters at Bloomberg, and this reporter is no Jason Schreier. I'll tell you that. Takashi Makazuki, he only, from what I understand, I only ever see reports from this guy at Bloomberg when it's negative news for Sony or negative news for Nintendo. And it's some kind of insider report every time where it's we got this information and then it turns out to be wrong. Sometimes it turns out to be right, but the track record is hit or miss with this guy. So, the idea that we can just safely assume Nintendo's in some kind of trouble, I don't think that's a safe assumption. I think it's interesting. Jason's been wrong a bunch. See, that's interesting. I do come across people and they're like, yeah, Jason Schreier doesn't have a great track record. And I'm confused by that because it's I don't know what he's been wrong about. I'm sure his track record is not 100%. Nobody's is. Doesn't matter how on point you are. But I feel of all the insiders Jason Schreier has become, he's become, I think he's like risen to the top as somebody where like his track record is very good. Not perfect, but very good. Because I can't remember when he was wrong. I'm sure there's something. Every insider has, they've taken their L's, no doubt, no matter how good they are. That's why I always tell people, like, it's okay if you want to lean on somebody's track record and be like, I trust them, but we can never be completely shocked if they end up being wrong, because the thing about insider information is it can change. The sources that they're speaking to, the information they're getting, one of the biggest reasons it's not supposed to be public is because it can change. And a lot of times it does. So, that's why a lot of people refuse to believe everything we've heard about, Sony pulling back on PC and stuff like that. I kind of forgot that he used to work for Kotaku. Yeah. I forgot about that. What was he wrong about most recently? I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't think of anything. I mean, I think maybe a year or two ago he made like a prediction about GTA that turned out to be completely wrong. Wasn't like a leak or anything, but I don't know. But if you're ever nervous, if you're ever in doubt, just wait for official confirmation. That's the one thing that I can advocate for here, what Josh is saying. I mean, I cover leaks and rumors all the time, and I will continue to do so. But, if you're ever skeptical, just wait for the official news to come out, Josh, you're saying, especially when you consider the success of Pokemon Pokopia. How do you say that? Pokopia? Is that how you say that? It makes zero sense to cut Switch production in the US. Well, I'll go over the report here. And I will be very curious to see if this turns out to be true or false myself. It says this morning, Bloomberg reports that the Nintendo is cutting Switch 2 production by more than 30% for this quarter. The original plan was to make 6 million units of the new hybrid console, but Nintendo allegedly revised this down to 4 million units following weaker than expected holiday sales, especially in the United States. This reduction should not prevent Nintendo from reaching the anticipated goal of 20 million units by the end of the fiscal year, which ends later this month. The Nintendo Switch 2 had already sold 17.3 million units as of December 31st, 2025, as reported in February, far outpacing the initial sales of the previous Switch console. So the one thing I do want to highlight here that's interesting to me is that even if this were to be true, which again, we don't know, we will find out. But even if it were to be true and Nintendo did say we're cutting it by 30%, they're still on track to like break their own records, it seems, or to like at least like still far outpace the Switch 1. So I do wonder if maybe it could be the result of maybe Nintendo being a bit too bullish, where, I mean, they see the Switch 2 coming out of the gate swinging, breaking all types of records, and they're like, well, the sky's the limit. Maybe we are seeing a bit of a more natural slowdown. Well, slowdown in the context of you're not going to sell 6 million, but you'll probably sell at least 4 million. I'm just trying to figure this one out, because it's like, on one hand, oh no, they're cutting it by 30%. That must be bad. But on the other hand, it's like, no, they're still on track to sell over 20 million units by the end of their fiscal year, and basically they still broke a bunch of records. So it's like, it seems like it may turn out to be one of these things where it's like, it did really good, but it didn't do that good, where like it wasn't like just the wave getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The wave kind of peaked, and now you're just riding it. You know what I mean? It could be that type of situation. The thing that people want to jump to, though, and this is where I can understand why Josh and other Nintendo fans get a little bit frustrated, because when people see this type of news, they want to, they jump to, well, there it is. Switch 2 is done. It's over. Wrap it up. Stick a fork in Nintendo, because they're done. And to me, that's I just like I say this as somebody who doesn't play on Nintendo, but I do not understand how people can come to that conclusion after what we've seen. I have no horse in the race. Like, I don't want to see the one reason I would want to continue to see Nintendo do well is just so it can continue to be some level of competition towards Sony, but it doesn't really feel like they're directly competing most of the time. So as somebody who really doesn't have a horse in the race, I'm just like, I think some people who are assuming that this is the beginning of the end, where it's like now you're just going to see Nintendo Switch 2 sales fall off a cliff. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's wishful thinking for some people, but I could see a slowdown. I think that is like reasonable and rational. But the biggest thing that I've seen from people, because I encounter this on my channel, there are a lot of Nintendo fans that, play on PlayStation as well, and they sometimes tune into my channel. They've also said that, they're waiting for specific games to be announced by Nintendo. They're waiting for the next 3D Mario game, the next Zelda, something along those lines. They're waiting for specific exclusives before they go out and pull the trigger and buy the Switch 2. And, that makes a lot of sense too, because most people who are buying Nintendo Switch 2s are doing so for the first party games. The third party is helping, of course, but, I think we've known that about Nintendo hardware for quite some time. We have John Hipcrit with a 10-pound super chat. He says, the guy you always use who reports all sales said yesterday the Switch 2 is the best-selling console ever. Over 9 months it's been out, and they still have to drop Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon. LOL. I think you have to be talking about Matt Piscatella, right? Which, if that's true that he said that, I'm shocked that's not showing up, because I know he's on Blue Sky. I'm not on Blue Sky. So anytime I come across his reporting, I usually come across it on Reddit. Let me see. Matt Piscatella. Yeah, see, that's that's funny if he just said that. Wait, really quick. Matt Piscatella 6 hours ago. In response to Epic Games laying off over 1,000 employees, according to Circana's player engagement tracker, Fortnite led in U.S. February monthly active users across both PlayStation, 35% of all active users playing, and Xbox, 31% of all active users playing. The average PlayStation player engaged with Fortnite for 16 hours in the month. Oh my God, that's crazy. Versus 21 last February. So the hours are down. At least there's that, with Xbox players averaging 15 hours versus 19. All right. It says Matt Piscatella 7 hours ago, U.S. Nintendo Switch 2 hardware installed base compared to other consoles after 9 months in the market. February 2026 for Switch 2. Wait, what? PS5 plus 29%, PS4 plus 30%. Hold on. I don't think that's the right one. He says here, the Switch 2 remains the second fastest selling hardware tracked in U.S. history starting from 1995, since they started tracking, behind only the Game Boy Advance. My God, the Game Boy Advance sold that well. Even I had a Game Boy Advance, so I guess it's not too shocking. We have Easy Tone, a member for 2 months. He says, one thing that concerns me about these studio closures is how staggered they are. It doesn't feel like a considered reset, just on the fly changes. Yeah, they're just doing drive-bys to the studios, bro. We got those Herman Hulst drive-bys, man. Last month, it was Blue Point. This month, it's Dark Outlaw. Who's next? Media Molecule. Better watch out, bro. No, I get what you're saying, Easy Tone. I do. So I will tell you this. I do think it is measured. I do think it is considered. And the reason I say that is because they have to be. There's just the idea of Sony doing these kind of like flyby changes I mean, not to say that that doesn't happen from time to time, but I'll put it to you this way: like the decision to close Dark Outlaw Games likely was made weeks ago. I think Sony just doesn't want to come out. They, I think they're purposely staggering it to like ease the blow, if that makes sense. Where it's like we need to get the big one out there first, Blue Point, because that one's gonna hurt. But I'm pretty sure, like at the time we heard about Blue Point closing, I'm pretty sure that's when the decision was already made to shut down Dark Outlaw. Um, and like for example, if 2 months from now we find out Haven was shut down, I would just assume like, yeah, you guys definitely made that earlier this year. You made that decision earlier. There's no way, because the only reason why there would be like what you're describing here, the idea of we just need to like quickly shut these guys, like okay, take somebody off the board, Dark Outlaw, take them off. The only reason that would be happening is if at a higher level at Sony, they're basically like putting their their boot on Herman's neck, where it's like on the PlayStation Studios business side, they're really dropping the hammer, where it's like we're not spending this much money. Like we're tightening the belt, we're really trimming the fat. And Herman, you're the one in charge. Who's going? It's possible. I just feel like it's unlikely. Like I feel like it's unlikely that they gave Herman an ultimatum of some kind a month ago, where they're like, you got to pick, a studio's got to go. Somebody's coming off the board. And Herman was like, I guess it's got to be Blue Point. And then like a month later, they're like, we got to do it again. If that's what was going on, that would indicate that, that would indicate budget cuts for PlayStation Studios to a degree that would be quite extreme. And look, that is very possible. I guess maybe I'm in a little bit of denial where like I don't want to believe that that's what's going on, but I'm trying to look at it more glass half full, where it's like not so much about budget cuts, but more about strategic, like, yeah, we can afford to keep this studio open. And it's like somebody said it earlier. They were like, Herman went on record saying that if studios are going to fail, they want them to fail early and quickly, and cheaply. They don't want any studios to become a money sink. They don't want projects to become money sinks. They want to identify, like, is this working or not, very quickly. And my assumption is that they identified that with Dark Outlaw probably in the last 2 months, that like this isn't working. But we'll see. We'll see we'll see what other news about PlayStation Studios comes out. But shifting back to the Nintendo conversation here, I do think that sorry, getting distracted here. I do think that people are jumping the gun, not to be a Nintendo defender, because I'm definitely not a Nintendo defender. But I feel like when you look at the fact that right now, the Switch 2 is still the second fastest selling hardware in the US, only behind the Game Boy Advance, it doesn't mean there can't be a slowdown. It doesn't mean things won't maybe taper off and it'll kind of go back to normal, where it's like, okay, they're not really going to be breaking records. They're not going to be selling Switch 2s at breakneck speed anymore. Of course that can happen. And I think there is a certain level of expectation that it will. But there is a difference between that and I think, again, I just don't know what it is, man. I mean, maybe people really don't like Nintendo. Maybe they don't like their business practices. I don't know. I don't follow Nintendo close enough to truly know 100%. But I definitely come across people where they're just like, I just want to see the Switch fail. I just want to see Nintendo fail. And I guess that's to be expected with all this stuff to a certain degree. But with the Nintendo Switch 2, I see it a little bit more frequently. And again, I'm not, I'm not a Nintendo fanboy. So when I'm saying this, I'm just trying to present the data to people where it's like, that's cool, man. Like, you can hate Nintendo with a burning passion and want to see them die. But this is what's actually happening. I didn't make it that way. Literally, I didn't even contribute to it, but this is what's happening. And I think people get upset at that, where they're like, impossible. No, like, this is bad. And I'm like, there's a lot of things that are bad in the world. Just go on Twitter for like 5 minutes. Go check the news for 5 minutes. You're gonna realize there's a lot of things that are bad. It just is. But yeah, I think people get a little bit too passionate about wanting to see some of these companies fail. People would say that's what I was like with Xbox, but it's like, bro, I plead the fifth on that one, bro. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm not going to say nothing. I didn't want to see him die. Come on. What are we doing here? Don't go on Twitter. John Hipcrit, you're saying it's just PlayStation, Microsoft, and PC people hoping it will, LOL. That's the thing, man. Like, one of the things I can't wrap my head around, I've tried. I've even tried to partake in it because I'm like, there has to be something to this. But I mean this, where it's like, I don't understand cheering on the failure of something. The only time I can understand it is if it, like, there's something personal behind it. It's like, okay, that makes sense. But generally speaking, it's like, aren't you supposed to cheer on things you like? It's like if you were watching a sports game and you claim, it's like, oh, you must be a fan of Team A, right? That's why you're rooting against Team B. It's like, no, I'm not a fan of Team A. I just hate Team B that much. I'm a fan of hating Team B. Like, to me, that's weirdo behavior where it's like, maybe you should just not be part of this because that's weird. That's a weird reason to be part of something. It does make sense if you're a fan of Team A, you're rooting against Team B, but even then, it's like, in the when we're talking about the video game industry, it's like, I just don't understand people rooting for failure. I don't know. It's probably a reflection of society today. Like, dude, I made a mistake today on Twitter. Surprise, surprise. How is it weird? Well, to me, it comes off as weird because it's like, I guess it depends on the energy you're bringing to it. Like, a lot of people rub me the wrong way where they come off as, and I'm not talking about you guys here. Whiskey, what's going on, man? I'm talking like mainly on places like Twitter and Reddit and stuff like that. We're mainly Twitter. Also YouTube to an extent, but where it's like there becomes almost like a fixation. Well, that's the thing. Alex, you could say that. You could try to turn the table on me and be like, but that's you are a fan of Sony and you hate Microsoft. But the reality is you can find a lot of proof of me rooting for Microsoft. That's the truth. I think you guys know what I'm talking about, though. It's like the unhealthy fixation of like, be passionate, but understand that like your time and your energy is limited. And choosing to channel so much of that towards something that brings you, like, just the idea of getting joy out of failure. I don't know. I get it to a certain extent, but it's like the behavior that I see from some people. I'll give you an example here. Now, I made a mistake on Twitter today. I worded something very wrong because when I saw some of the replies, I was very confused. I'm like, what? But then I looked at the way I worded it. I'm like, oh. So I put out this post, and this is exactly what it says. Naughty Dog is in the top 3 best video game studios in the world. Do you agree or disagree? And what I didn't realize with the way I worded this is that it reads like I'm saying that. And I realize, like, yeah, okay, that, because I don't feel that way, but I guess the way I worded it basically read as I'm telling you Naughty Dog is in the top 3 best video game studios in the world right now. And oh boy, did I upset some people. But it's funny because it's like, that's actually not what I meant. I was just trying to do like an experiment. Like, if you read this statement, I'm not telling you. Here's how I should have worded it. I should have said, if someone were to say Naughty Dog is in the top 3, that's how I should have worded it, because I realized the way I worded it, it comes off as like I'm telling you they're in the top 3. Do you agree with me or disagree? And dude, some of the replies are insane, man. Like, people are so upset. And I'm like, I wasn't trying to upset anybody. I was not. But I decided to double down on it, and I put another question. I said, Rockstar is the #1 game developer in the world. Agree or disagree? Suffice to say, it's got people talking. Anyway, what was I talking about? Anyway, yeah, going back to talking about Switch 2 sales. Is Nintendo truly cutting them? Are they cutting production? The only reason I could see that happening is because, well, they did warn that we might have to, like the price of components are going up. We might have to raise the price of the Switch 2 at some point because of that. But I don't know. We'll see if it turns out to be true. That's the thing. We shouldn't have to wait too long, because if it is true, Nintendo will confirm it during their investor report. And, I would just caution people to be careful with info like this. It's like, for example, you'll see people come out today and be like, man, Sony's in deep trouble because they closed Dark Outlaw Games. And it's like, bro, 90% of the people running with this news didn't even know the studio existed till today. So you just got to be careful. You got to be careful not to get too caught up in the negativity of it all. It's misery loves company. That's the truth. I mean, be miserable if you want. I'm not going to tell you how you should be. Be how you want to be. It's not my place to tell you. It's not my place to tell you. Guys, we're going to continue the conversation here today, though. We are not finished yet. We still have topics to discuss. Before we move on to the next topic, guys, take a moment. Please hit that like button. Nintendo's CEO admitted overseas sales were weaker than expected. Let me look that. He may have said that. Let me double check. Did Nintendo say Switch 2 sales were weaker than expected? Let me see. Yes, Nintendo's president Shintaro Furukawa confirmed that Switch 2 overseas sales were slightly weaker than expected. So he says slightly weaker, particularly in the US during the winter holiday period. The problem with that Bloomberg article is I can't read it because it's behind a paywall. Sales exceeded expectations in Japan, but internationally failed to meet targets, specifically in the US. So it says the holiday season is when it was weakened, but it was noted to be part of a wider slump in the US gaming console sector. Reports suggest a lack of major must-have exclusives, contrasting with strong demand for titles like Pokemon Pokopia in Japan. Hmm. Yeah, I'm looking over some replies from people here. Somebody says, "Is it really that sales are weak? I thought the Switch 2 broke records for rate of sales. Could it be that people are just buying consoles right away and less over time?" Somebody responds by saying, "Everyone who was sure they wanted one in the near future and had money bought it right away in case the price went up because of tariffs or whatever. I'm guessing that won't happen again unless they announce a price increase ahead of time." Well, we'll see, man. We'll see. I mean, I can't help but be interested in the overall trajectory of the Switch 2 because I've always been very bullish about the Switch 2. I just assume, like, yeah, it's going to be fine, man. It's going to be a very strong console. And so far, that still seems to be what it is. And I'm just saying this as a observer, you know? John Hipcrit, you're saying people said Nintendo was dead with the Wii U. To be fair, they were very close. The interesting thing about the Wii U situation is Nintendo hardware was practically dead. Like the Wii U, it sold a max of 13 million units lifetime. People were almost expecting Nintendo to go third party, to go multi-platform, where it's like, well, I guess you better start releasing Zelda and Smash Bros. And Mario on PlayStation and Xbox. But, you know, they had the Nintendo NX, is that what the code name was? And it was their big play. Like, we're either going to save, you know, Nintendo first party hardware or it's over. And they saved it, dude. They did it. And John Hipcrit, you're saying, so you expect the PS6 to break all Switch records? No, actually, I don't. I think what Sony needs to worry about is competing with themselves. I don't think so. Like, if the Switch 2 is the current record holder for how fast a new console selling, I don't think the PlayStation 6 will beat that unless Sony does something nuts. I mean, I don't know what they could do. Maybe the double whammy of we got the PlayStation 6 and the PlayStation 6 handheld and like a crazy launch lineup of exclusives. If they went like scorched earth, maybe. But my idea with Sony going into next gen is like they need to just focus on competing with the PS4 and the PS5. I think the imperative here is that the time for growth is pretty much non-existent for everybody. You know, it's not to say that there isn't growth happening anywhere. It's just it's random and it's inconsistent and no one really knows where it's going to come from. PlayStation has at least one advantage where it's like, well, you have an established fan base and an established business model. That's why I keep saying, like, the idea is just focus on trying to make the PlayStation 6 keep pace as much as you can with the PS4 and PS5. Don't worry about breaking records. Don't worry about being the best because that's not going to matter with tough times, you know? And John Hipcrit, you're saying, so it's doomed then by the same narrative. No, I don't think it's doomed. I don't think it's poised to be a record breaker. I think the PlayStation 6 realistically, like if I'm actually trying to be realistic about it, just from an analysis standpoint, I think it's well positioned to do okay, but could do well as long as Sony checks off certain boxes and gets aggressive in really speaking to the fans and trying to make the PlayStation 6 feel like a must-have console. You know, will having the best PlayStation showcase in the world with a bunch of exclusives and a handheld, could that be enough to be like, wow, it's actually going to sell better than the Switch 2 did? Maybe, but I think Sony would be foolish to expect that. If something like that's going to happen, it's going to shock everybody. But I think all really Sony needs to worry about, like I said, is you don't want the PS6 to be falling far behind the PS4 and PS5. You know, you don't want it to get off to a sluggish start, and you don't want it to hit a wall. I think they just have to focus on finding that consistent sell through, you know? But that's easier said than done. We've talked very extensively about the hurdles that the PlayStation 6 is going to have to overcome. And I think Sony could very easily get tripped up on any one of those hurdles. They got to be on point, man. And we have a Glassdoor Gamer with a $5 chat saying, canceling all these live service games, pulling PC games, canceling the mobile strategy. Nishino the GOAT is bringing PlayStation back. Hype. Well, see, that's what I said earlier. I said PlayStation players, man. Like, I mean, real PlayStation fans. I don't say real. What's a fake PlayStation fan? I mean, more hardcore PlayStation fans, more traditional PlayStation fans. They're happy to see this stuff. Like, I didn't even talk about the mobile initiative because that's how much of an afterthought it is to me. But yeah, I'm glad to see that too. Like, good thinking, Sony. You should just focus on what works for you. Don't worry about getting mobile gamers to play a Ratchet and Clank game. Worry about getting PlayStation players to upgrade to the PlayStation 6 to play the next Ratchet and Clank game. Well, why not both? Sure, maybe. Do you have the bandwidth? No. Do you have the expertise? No. Okay, then do what I just said. I think Nishino gets it, man. Maybe we're wrong. I don't want to... Listen, I don't want to sit here and say that anything's guaranteed for PlayStation, but it's like, you stick with the traditional way of doing things, I think you'll be okay. John Hipcrit, you're saying, I'm confused. Switch 2 is doomed by breaking sales records, but PS6 isn't by selling less at launch. Never changed. No. John, I think you misunderstood what I said. When I was... I never said the Switch 2 is doomed. I think you might be getting thrown off or something, because I was actually pushing back against this notion. We started covering the topic. Was it a gotcha moment? No, I don't think so. Not this time. Because when we started talking about this topic, Josh Z was the first one to bring it up, or to say that, like, he thinks this report is BS and he's not going to believe it until Nintendo says it themselves. And I was in agreement, where the whole thing I was trying to point out is that even if the report is true, that, like, yes, Nintendo is cutting their production by 30%, I'm like, they're still breaking records, though. Like, even with that 30% reduction, they're still breaking records. They're still on fire, you know? And so I personally don't think that the Switch 2 is doomed. I think the Switch 2 is going to do just fine. I think there are people who want the Switch 2 to be doomed. I think there are people who want the PlayStation 6 to be doomed. I think there are a lot of people, this is why I said I feel like sometimes it's a reflection of a breakdown in society, unfortunately, to a certain extent, where I think that there's a lot of people, they want everything to be doomed. I want Marathon to be doomed. I want PlayStation to be doomed. I want Xbox to be doomed. I want PC gaming to be doomed. Prince, chill, bro. Still chill with the spamming. I want, gaming to be doomed. I want Fortnite to be doomed. I want everything to be doomed because everything's... And I get it. I feel bad because it's like there's a lot of crazy things happening in the world, and you really got to protect your mental well-being, because, I mean, if you spend a lot of time on the internet like I do, and, you're subject to all these algorithms, I mean, my God, man. Yeah, trust me. I've had to take steps back myself, where it's like, I spend like 30 minutes on Twitter, and I'm like, what? Everything's over. Like, it's the apocalypse. My life is over. Nothing means anything. It's all downhill from here, And it's like, chill. Like, literally, like, for me, it's like, go for a walk, man. Just go lay on the ground or something. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. But no, I don't think the Switch 2 is doomed. I think that here's my best guess. My best guess is that even if the Switch 2 slows down, I think it's going to be fine. I think the Switch 2 is on a trajectory to be a very successful piece of hardware. Whether or not it's going to like break all-time records, outsell the Switch 1, catch the PS2, I don't know. I feel like with everything that's going on right now, it's nearly impossible to try to telegraph that and predict that. But the PS6, I feel kind of similar about it as long as Sony gets it right. As long as they're, again, you just check off the boxes you need to check off. Do what you got to do. They will, if you build it, they will come. John Hipcrit, you're saying, my bad, MBG, was away for a bit. Prince Groove crying. Uh-oh. We're gonna have some conflict in the chat. Prince G and John Hipcrit. They're gonna go at it. Cage match. It's all good. Prince, calm down. Prince, you're cool, bro. He says, John, hyperthyroidism. Shadowlink, what's up, man? You're saying, MBG, on another podcast, someone said we aren't Sony ponies. We are Sony stallions. Well, that's one way of expressing your pride, I suppose. Is that what we're calling it now? I don't know about you guys. I'm a Sony stallion. People are crazy, man. Daniel, you're saying, MBG, why does everybody talk about 100 million? You don't need to hit 100 million to be successful. 80 million would still be successful. I agree with that, but it's because it's the comparison that will always exist, where it's like, from an investor standpoint, like, oh, you only hit 80 million. Like Sony would say, like, that's good. The investor would say, but that's not as good as what you did before. So that means it's bad. If you ain't first, you're last. It's about Nintendo's internal targets. As long as it meets that, it will be considered a success. Well, that's true. That's true. But like I said, man, I'm taking the position of, and it's not fence sitting. It's an honest to God, like I think this is what we're witnessing right now. Is I think it's the Switch 2 is doing very, very well. No matter which way you slice it, it's doing very well. If the slowdown comes, it's still going to do good. Something I think catastrophic would have to happen for the Switch 2 to just fall off a cliff, and for like Nintendo would have to stop making games or something, you know. Then we would have a different conversation. And I feel that Sony can be on a similar track, maybe not a record-breaking track, but a similar track, as long as they do what they got to do, man. Pikachu with a $2 super chat says, how much for Prince versus John tickets? There are no tickets. There is no cage match. We're all getting along here. We're all getting along with one another. Even when Rich isn't here, there's still some level of violence. Here we go. John Hipcrit says, Princess can't afford a ticket. Wait, was that? So, are we saying that Prince would have to buy his own ticket to even partake in the fight? Interesting. Thank you, John Hipcrit. Guys, calm down. Don't make me have to go Daddy BG on your asses again. All right. First, it's what is it with the chaotic energy? Why do I just bring chaotic energy naturally? First, it's my cats. At the beginning of the stream, my cats are going nuts. I can't even talk to you guys. Now it's cage matches between my audience members. All right. We do have another topic to discuss, though. Which one was it? Which one didn't I cover yet? Ah, yes. Okay. Saros. I was thinking about holding off on the Saros one. I'm not going to. But hold on. Everything's crashing. Because apparently Housemarque flew content creators out. Not me. I wouldn't have went anyway. But I'm not just saying that. But apparently, hold on. Why did I lose it? Yeah, they flew out some content creators to go hands-on with Saros, and those content creators were allowed to post that today. Not the actual footage or anything like that, but they were allowed to post that they went to Housemarque, they got hands-on gameplay, and they'll be able to give impressions soon. So it sounds like we're going to be getting previews very soon. I can't. Hold on one second, guys. I lost the. What happened to it? It's just gone? Okay. I had a report here for Saros, but you know what? I got something better than that. I got a video. Titus, sorry to keep you waiting, man. Member for 29 months. You're saying, why will you not engage with the truth? I said it in 2 chats. What's actually happening? The people who bought consoles don't have the money anymore. Well, first off, Titus, I didn't see your chats, but I mean, I think the reason why I struggle to agree with that is because I have Princess Groove 69. Things can just never be normal. I think the reason I can't agree with that, Titus, at least not fully, is because it seems too broad stroke of a statement. I think that a lot of people who bought consoles still have plenty of money to spend on it. Do I think, I will say this though, to your credit, I think people are becoming more conscientious. I think people are becoming more conscientious about what they're going to spend their money on in gaming. Now, obviously, that doesn't apply to everybody. There are probably a lot of loaded people involved in gaming or buying consoles that they can buy whatever they want. But just because you have money doesn't mean you're going to spend it necessarily, right? So I think that realistically, it just comes down to there are things happening in the world right now that are causing it's having a ripple effect. It's having a trickle effect where yes, it's ultimately going to lead to people tightening the belts, so to speak, you know, and not spending so frivolously on consoles, on subscriptions, on software, on microtransactions. But for some reason, my PC is chugging right now, dude. And I do think that is having an effect, for sure. And I think we will continue to see that. But I don't necessarily, I guess what I'm trying to say here, Titus, is I don't think that will necessarily equal failure for Nintendo or Sony in the console space. I think it will equal potentially, diminishing returns, perhaps. But yeah, whoa, okay, what's up, Clark? Don't step on the. Okay. Why do you gotta jump up here like that, bro? Don't. Did you just hear him yell at me? Princess Groove 69 says super chat gets you a ticket. I can't read my chat because it's freezing. Hold on. Guys, bear with me for a second. I have to figure out something is causing my PC to chug to a degree where like Google Chrome 74 says I have 74. That can't be real. What? I don't have 74 tabs open. What? Hold on. Okay. Okay. Think we're good now. I got my chat back. Why does it do that, man? It's so damn irritating. I don't have. Actually I do have. I have 64 gigs of RAM, bro. So I don't know what the problem is. I don't have enough RAM. Have you tried turning it off and back on? Someone's mining Bitcoin on my PC. Yeah, I don't even know it. Oh, man. All right. Whiskey, you're saying compared to the 80s, yes, because you just had a huge inflationary cycle. So, yes, over long term, it has. But looking at it over the past 5 years, it's almost a flat trend. Well, that's the thing. I feel like everybody's kind of like waiting. You know, we're waiting for the big calamity. And I mean, I'm not going to be the one to say that it's not happening or it won't happen. Some argue it already has. I just view it as like, well, I don't know. I'm not going to try to predict anything because who knows? You know, no one knows what's going to happen. Even when it comes to trying to like look at, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like some would say it's literally happening right now, but it's like, dude, listen, I'm going to get existential on your asses for a moment, but that's why you come here. Because I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you the hard truth that no one else is going to give you. But sometimes you need a truth like this to put things in perspective. Every day that goes by, things quite literally are getting worse for you. And I'm not saying that it's the economy. It's your bottom line. No, I'm saying you're getting older. The days are going by. Time is ticking and time doesn't stop. Time waits for no man. And no one knows how much time they have. So I'm not saying live your life. Don't YOLO your life, you know? I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying if you start to get nervous, you start to get like stressed and anxious, try to harness it and really just think, what can I actually do? Like what can I realistically do right now? Like right now. And if the answer is nothing, then it turns out sometimes the best thing to do is nothing. And if there's any wisdom I can impart to anybody who's listening to my stream or my podcast, it would be that sometimes the best thing to do is nothing. Not all the time, certainly not all the time. Action does need to be taken, but timing is so important. So important. Time is valuable. It is the most valuable currency. So, yeah, try to enjoy the time while you have it. You know, be critical, be thoughtful, be deep. Go deep, go all the way. But not for too long, you know? Bro, can you go back to John McConsole? That was my favorite one. Princess Groove 69 says, stop gaming, go outside. Only for a little bit. Yes. Dark Outlaw Games shut down. It's unfortunate. We do have a Saros video that we're going to check out. Time and space work differently. Well, as far as we know, we are bound by the laws of physics in this physical plane of existence on planet Earth. See what you guys are doing to me? Just trying to talk games. Leave it to my chat to throw me into existentialism. All right. Let me bring this up. Sir Digital Dude says, grow some balls, go out like Robin Williams. Mm-mm. Is that a casting couch back there? No, look, man, it's a casting chair. That's what that is. No, my casting couch doesn't come until Friday, I believe. All right, you see, this is what happened. This is the problem when I stream later. I start to go off the rails quicker. William Aguilar in the chat says MBG, Blundell, and JC Backfire will live stream tomorrow. So you think they're going to give us some information, I suppose, on what's going down at their studio. Okay, let me see. Well, it would be nice to get some information. Yeah, I don't want to know nothing about that, Titus. I don't want to know nothing about that. You got to stay in the light, bro. You got to stay in the light. Got to try. All right. Let me get this. I'm sorry. I'm really starting to lose my grip here. So let me move over here. I got the video up here. Bringing it up. Guys, before we check this video out together, this is a new Saros video. Before we check it out, do me a favor. You're forming the resistance while we still have time. Oh, man. Guys, I just said to keep it positive. Keep it positive. Bros out here like, I'm forming the resistance. We're doing it right now. I might order pizza. There you go. See, Titus, I'm all about that. Order some pizza. Hell yeah. Pizza sounds great. I got to work out, though, in a little bit. I got to do I'm trying to get back on a solid routine. I don't know if pizza would ruin that. Anyway, we got a new Saros video. Before we watch it, do me a favor. Make sure you hit the like button, okay? If you guys are enjoying the podcast episode today, enjoying the stream, hitting that like button helps more than you know. And like I said, we hit 25 members. If you guys want to continue to support, any way you support, super chats, direct donations, memberships, feel free to do so as we check out this new Saros video. Chicken and rice, dude. I just bought a huge bag of these frozen grilled teriyaki chicken breasts, and they're amazing. Throwing them on rice. You know what? I'm more of a pasta guy, though. I am Italian. I'm very Italian. I'm like over 50% Italian. My family, very, very Italian, man. My grandmother, rest in peace. She was very Italian. Her cooking. I don't even know what to say at this point. It was so good. Like, I miss it so much, man. Oh, I just realized. So, Moonshot, you said with the direct donation, I caught you saying you don't use your portal. That's why I didn't buy one. I've used one. Awesome device, just have zero use for it. Same with this. You said BOGOs, but I think bogus PS6 handheld. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, man. I like the idea of these devices, and I don't mind them being a thing. I think it's good that they're a thing. Having the options is not a bad thing, but yeah, man, it's like I just when I game, I game on my console. I am John McConsole. I game on the console, and I've tried to, like, I've used the portal a few times where it's like I definitely don't have to, but I'm just trying to justify its existence in my home, which is fine, but at some point when I get everything set up, I'll put it somewhere back there on a shelf or something. But the real question for me, because the thing about the portal, though, is it's kind of on the cheaper side, it being like $200, which, I mean, $200 is $200, but for a device, it's not that expensive comparatively speaking. I do wonder, like I do wonder how I'm going to feel about the PlayStation 6 handheld. I mean, I will feel like I should purchase one and try to purchase one in order to cover it on the channel, but I can't deny that when it comes to the PlayStation 6, like, yeah, I'm all about the home console, you know. The handheld's just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm more interested in the handheld from a, you know, following like the PlayStation business side. I'm really curious to see what this thing does for them. It's like, is this thing going to be the next big hardware for Sony, or is it going to be some kind of like failure or flop? I don't know. But this is a new video on Saros that Housemarque themselves put out. And, you know, I feel like Saros is right around the corner, and just about a month from now, I think we're going to start to hear more about it, you know, in the marketing ramp up. But let's check it out. It's only a 3-minute video.
A new part to Housemarque games, like actually having permanent progression that really changes how you play the game. We're offering all kinds of new upgrades and interesting changes to the gameplay that really change the dynamics of what you do. Even from leveling up, that you can make it faster, you can gain power faster. So the whole experience going through the levels and bosses will drastically change when you start upgrading your character. Yeah, the game is definitely still challenging, and the whole goal with the permanent progression isn't to trivialize the game, it's just offering more agency.
Games offer different kind of ways to adjust the challenge of the game. Most usual solution is to offer normal difficulty, easy difficulty and hard difficulty. But we wanted to take another route. We wanted to have this all grounded into the game world. And here we have cargoes and modifiers that you can use to customize your own difficulty based on what works for you.
We have different kind of tools available for the player, so with the cargoes and modifiers you can actually choose which part you're gonna interact more. If you don't like certain areas of the game or certain challenges are too much, you can mitigate those, but you always have to choose something as a trade-off to still keep the balance. We have pretty drastic options there. You can even disable many of the permanent unlocks, so you can really make the game more difficult.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that for a second because I did encounter at least one person earlier that they were saying they don't like the direction that Housemarque is going in here. They feel like they're making the game, you know, too easy. Like they're going down the route of, rather than asking people to just like get better and get good at the game, they're gonna, you know, introduce difficulty options and all that stuff. But I feel like that part that he just said there is so important, where actually they're introducing options if you want to make it even more difficult, which you couldn't do that. And well, I guess you technically in some shape or form could do that in Returnal, but not like explicitly. I have no problem with this. I think this is a smart decision for the casuals to sell more copies. I mean, maybe, perhaps. I feel like realistically, yeah, they probably felt like, look, you know, they have all the telemetry. They can see how many people fell off of this game and at what parts they fell off at. And they've had a lot of time to really think this through. And here's what I'll say. What I appreciate most about what Housemarque is doing here is they're not just taking the easiest possible route, where they're like, we're just going to put easy, normal, and hard, and extreme, right? They actually seemingly like, they really did make it where it's pretty well thought out. You have a bunch of different options. They're calling it modifiers. And they have the little, you know, the meter there where it's like you can figure out like how much easier or how much more difficult you're making it. And I am curious to see how this works because when I played Returnal, I've always told you guys that I almost did quit that game because it was the third biome. The multi-platform boss fight was ridiculous. Dude, yeah, the third biome is for me, that was the checkpoint for me. I think it was for a lot of people, where the difficulty just felt like it really ramped up. at biome number 3, and I was not prepared for it. And I got so annoyed and frustrated. I got to a point where I'm like, I don't know that I want to do this. You know, I think I'm just gonna. I considered like, stopping playing. But what I learned when playing that third biome is that I forced myself to keep playing no matter how frustrated I got, and eventually it was like a light switch just turned on, like a switch was flipped, and then I just got it, and I just became unstoppable. And it was weird. It went from like 0 to 100%. My assumption with this game, because they did say in the beginning, like, this is still going to be a difficult game. Like, I think, like, you have to unlock these modifiers. I think that's something that a lot of people are not understanding, is that, like, this isn't literally, at least that's my understanding of what they're saying. Like, you still have to unlock the modifiers and unlock progression. You can't just go in and be like, I'm making it as easy as possible. Maybe you can. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this. But my assumption is that when you do like your first playthrough of Saros, here's what I think. I think if you're just trying to play this game, I want to go from point A to point B to point C until I get to the end of the game, you can do that. And it will be just as challenging as Returnal. I think you can probably grind this game. Maybe I'm wrong about that. That's where I still want to learn more about this title, where it's like, it reminds me of the Souls games or Elden Ring, or Bloodborne for that matter, where it's not necessarily how it's supposed to be played, but you can absolutely play it this way, where if you're struggling in an area in Dark Souls or Elden Ring, you can just grind. Just grind, and over-level your character. I wonder if you can do that with progression in this. Like, I don't know if progression is distinctly tied to, getting from point A to point B to point C. Like, in order to get this permanent progress unlock, you have to get to this point. Or if it's more of these things, like, you can just keep kind of replaying the same area, grinding enemies, and kind of leveling up. I don't know if that's what they're planning on doing with Saros, but I'm not against this. I like the idea. I want Saros to do well. I want it to do well. And, making those people who are afraid of, like, oh, it's one of those games, no thank you, I don't want to be stressed out, giving them different options and levels of accessibility. I'm not against that. Princess Groove, you're saying PlayStation exclusive games are notoriously easy. Sony probably told them to do it. They want more sales and, like someone said, to entice more casuals. I mean, I think it depends, right? Like, a lot of the cinematic type experiences that Sony makes, they do try to make them accessible from a base level, where it's like, yeah, if you're going to play like Ghost of Yotei on like the normal difficulty, they're going to have some level of challenge where it's like, you got to pay attention and know what you're doing. But yeah, I think that, I don't know, I referenced this the other day, where it's like, if you try playing God of War Ragnarok on like the hardest difficulty, I mean, it's not gonna be easy. Oh, all right, guys. You want to bring it down to me? Well, all right. I'll stand by the door. Put it through the cat hole. Guys, hold on. I'll be right back. I just realized I was muted. God damn it. I messed it up. I was trying to say, do you want to know how Italian I am? This is how Italian I am. I'm sorry. I just spoke into a muted microphone. This is how Italian I am. And then I opened the jar. What Sony Studio shut down? Dark Outlaw Games was the one who shut down. You have the same pasta sauce in the kitchen. It's good stuff, man. It's good sauce. But yeah, I mean, I think Sony does tell their studios or suggest to their studios, like, listen, we want to make our games accessible because we want our games to sell, you know? And the truth is, you don't have to make your games accessible. Like, you don't have to make your games easier in order for them to sell. But I do think that at this point in time, Sony has created a certain expectation where I think Returnal shocked a lot of PlayStation players. They were like, what? Like, whoa, okay, this is a different type of game from Sony. We did cover that, Diego. You're talking about Epic laying off 1,000 people. We covered that earlier in the podcast. MBG, you Italian, bro. I am. All right, let's finish this video. Let's see. I don't think it's much longer.
Gameplay first ethos matters here as well. We want this UI to be as intuitive and fast as possible for the player. So they come here and very intuitively and quickly can do their adjustments and then get back to the action without any extra menus or any cumbersome UI navigations.
One thing that we really wanted to make sure is to let the players jump back to the biomes they have already reached. It was very important to keep the experience digestible.
We offer different kind of statistics of the biomes in the game. So for example here the player can follow how much rare resources like Halcon they have left in the biome.
Bro, did they bring back the RNG audio logs, bro? How smart. How smart. Please. Please. Not again. I can't do that again. Rich Rod with the $2 chat says, everyone behaving, just got off the work. Fruity. Yeah, everything's good. I saw this game in the PlayStation Store, Rich, called Fruit Picker. And I thought, did Rich Rod make that game? And then Mrs. MBG was like, nah, if Rich Rod made it, it would be something like Fruit Nugget or something. Fruit Nugget Extreme. So, what have you done to me, Rich?
And are there some lore entries they have not yet found or unlocked?
There are some abilities that you unlock later that let you reach new areas of the biomes, and you can also replay biomes to grow stronger, and it might be easier to defeat a challenging boss eventually.
Okay, so that part, I feel like he just kind of, let me replay this last part he said.
Abilities that you unlock later that let you reach new areas of the biomes, and you can also replay biomes to grow stronger, and it might be easier to defeat a challenging boss eventually.
So what he just said there confirms what I was just saying a little bit ago. King Sam, you're saying, just joined, who shut down? Dark Outlaw Games is the studio that shut down. Yeah. If you even know who they are. They are a first-party PlayStation studio. Apparently, there's going to be a live stream tomorrow from Jason Blundell, and I'm assuming he might give more information. But yeah, there exactly, Whiskey. There's the answer. He straight up says he just confirmed that if you hit a wall in this game, you can grind. That seems to be what he just said there, where you can replay the biomes and get stronger that way and go and play a boss that you're stuck on where it will effectively make the boss easier. So, and you know, the reason why I'm not opposed to that is because I had to do that in Elden Ring and in Souls games. Not every time, but I would definitely hit certain walls where I'm like, okay, time to grind. You know, rise and grind, and that's what I did, and that's how I would overcome it. But yeah, dude, I'm really rooting for Saros. I do want to see Housemarque achieve success here. I think that they deserve it. Yes, Rich Rod, Dark Outlaw Games. It's being reported, and you know, Jason Schreier seemingly confirmed it, that they're getting shut down. Yeah, Dark Outlaw is only like a year and a half old. So you hope they add co-op after a few months. My buddy won't play it solo, but I'd love to run through it again with him. Yeah, they did add, I think, a co-op mode for Returnal later on, right? My problem with that, I just hope it's sooner. Like, I hope they add it relatively soon. I never really got into it with Returnal because I was just like, I put 130 hours in the game, 120 hours or something like that, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm good, dude. That's the problem with these DLCs and these expansions is a lot of times they just come too late, man. Like, I'm like, I would have loved to have something like this closer to the launch, but sometimes once I move on, I move on. Yeah, within a few months, I could see it working, you know? But if I'm not mistaken, I think with Returnal, it came like way later. Maybe I'm misremembering, but you think Blundell needs to be retained? I don't know. I feel like that's unlikely at this point, man. You know, after all this. It was like a year. That's what it felt like. It was like something kind of crazy where I'm like, that's awesome, but I'm good. You know, I'm like playing something else at this point. Yeah. Epic Games said they are spending more than they are earning, so they did layoffs. In other news, Fortnite is adding The Rock. I saw that. I saw that too. I'm like, what? Is that The Rock? Is that Dwayne The Rock Johnson? What's going on? They increased the price of V-Bucks. They lay off 1,000 employees. It's also they can pay The Rock. The Rock is going to save Fortnite. Oh, man. I'm starting to lose it, guys. How long have I been streaming? All right, so listen. We're approaching the 3-hour mark. Okay? We got 8 minutes. We need a member train to close out this stream. I am once again I am forcefully initiating a member train so I can leave this stream feeling oh so good. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that. If you want to, go ahead. That would be cool. But we are looking good. We got 25 members. What I'm going to do, it is a last call. I'm initiating a last call. If you guys want to drop any more support, let me get this out of here. We're going to hang out for about 8 more minutes or so. I think dinner is almost ready. If you want to drop any more support before we wrap today's podcast episode up, feel free to do that. We will be back here tomorrow with another stream. Although I'm curious to see what the news is going to be, because I feel like the gaming news cycle has been a little bit on the quieter side. I double check what topics do I have left. Did I get every topic? I had a certain amount of topics I wanted to get through on the stream today. I'm pretty sure I covered everything. Let me just double check. Okay, there was one I didn't cover, but at this point, I'm not sure. So, like, there was this whole article written up. I did cover it in my video today. Take-Two CEO thinks next-gen consoles won't be delayed. And literally, the entire quote is he said, "We don't see that affecting the delivery of consoles to the market in response to the RAM situation." That's literally all he said. That's the entire quote. So, you know, it's interesting to get his perspective on that. But I kind of, when I first saw that article, there was one other thing I will just mention very briefly here, just in case you missed this. There is going to be an Xbox partner preview this week. It's happening March 26th, so I believe Thursday. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So this is one of those shows that Xbox does that just focuses on third-party games. And every game that's going to be shown, I believe, will be a multi-plat title. that'll be on PS5 as well. So that's why you might want to tune into it, even if you don't play on Xbox. However, they did confirm, let me see here, that Stranger Than Heaven will be there, The Expanse Osiris Reborn, and an update on Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl. Now, they do say that there's going to be brand new reveals and world premieres, but I don't know. I don't know if this is going to actually be like a good show or not. But we could check it out. We could stream it. Why not? You know, we will already be live. PlayStation Studios is worrying you. I mean, I can't blame you for feeling that way. I can't blame you, Rich. We just have to... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get your hopes up. I think PlayStation Studios still has a lot of good going for it. There's a lot of good things going for this family of studios, I believe. But I don't know. When it comes to Dark Outlaw Games closing, you know, just to kind of give my final say on that for now. I mean, I'll cover it in a video tomorrow. But it sucks. It's not good. Like, I would have preferred them to actually make a good game, even if it's live service, that we would get excited about and play. But after seeing what I've seen over the last 3 or 4 years when it comes to bad live service games being allowed to just continue to be developed for years and years and come to market just for it to be an absolute train wreck, I'd much rather that be axed early on. You know, I'd rather see that than just see it linger, you know? And my hope is, like I said, my hope is that Sony is going back more so to the roots of, like, do what you do, you know, do what you're good at and really celebrate that, focus on that, make that the focal point, return to the more, you know, loyal is the wrong word, but enthusiastic side of your fan base that wants you to do that as well and, you know, continue to build from that. I think that's what they need to do at this point. Perfect Image, you're saying, I trust and support Hideaki Nishino to lead PlayStation to that brighter future with the focus being a prioritization back to single player games. The next gen PS6 and PS6 handheld. I mean, yeah, it's looking more and more like that's the direction he's going in. And Nishino we trust.
PlayStation has been defining the
that's so
gaming industry for the past 3 decades.
Nishino gets it, hopefully. Listen to me, Sony. Listen to me. Sony, give me a call. All right. Guys, listen, if you are heading out of the stream, because we got about 2 more minutes here and we'll wrap this episode up. If you're heading out, do me a favor, make sure you hit that like button. And like I said, I did put out a news video earlier today. You can go check that out if you're interested or if you just want to support the video. Did you see the new Xbox CEO wants to lower Game Pass prices? No, let me look that up real quick. Xbox Game Pass. What's the news here? New Xbox CEO could make Game Pass less expensive. Microsoft Gaming has a new CEO. The information is reported that one of her ambitions is to help, quote, make future consoles and products like Game Pass more enticing to a broader range of customers, end quote. To that end, the report said Sharma might look to revamp pricing models for Game Pass to offer, quote, offer lower price tiers, end quote. That'll be interesting. I mean, my read on that is if they're going to offer even lower price tiers, they're going to be stripped down, probably very significantly. I mean, that would be good. I don't think that would be bad. You know, again, offering more options, you know, cheaper options that might be necessary for these subscription services going into the future. But we've seen this in other places. And every time you get these really low, like it's $7 a month, it's just trash, dude. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, it strips so much away that it's like, I know this is meant to be like an in-between option, but it's like this. It almost feels like, I don't know, like I'd much rather just, like, if I'm gonna do it, I may as well just pay for the good tier. You know what I mean? Because it's like this is so riddled with ads, and it's like how, like, when you're trying to subscribe to like Netflix or something, or like, do you want 4K or not, bro? It's like, what are we like? Yeah, it's like, well, if you're not willing to pay like $20 a month, you're just gonna get 1080p. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I guess, but what? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? You know? And I feel like we're about to get that with Gamepass, where it's like, listen, we got a $5 Game Pass tier. It's riddled with ads. You're capped at 720p for your games, 720p, 30 frames. If you're gonna be streaming, you can only stream from a Series S. You're getting Series S quality. I'm like, bro, okay. Perfect Image, you're saying read my last. Less native PC and mobile games ports instead of creating an all-in-one Sony/PlayStation Plus streaming app for movies, shows, anime, games, and music. Street Shadow, you're saying, MBG, I think Sony's live service should be more in partnership with second party, with Sony owning the IP. It lowers the risk on Sony and first party. And Kyle Say Stuff with the super chat says, MBG, did you see the DS2 PC versus PS5 Pro comparison? I did not. Who did the comparison and what did I miss? Please inform me. I'm curious. The one thing I did see about PC to PS5 Pro comparison, actually, I came across this. I say that and now I can't. Here we go. It is coming from, I think, a well-known Twitter user, Videotech UK. He says Pearl Abyss provided Digital Foundry with the PC equivalent visual settings for the PS5 and PS5 Pro. The PS5 Pro runs most basic settings at ultra settings, textures, model quality, lighting, and has better ray tracing. Now we're talking. The Pro is an excellent upgrade. You have better ray tracing than PC? That doesn't sound right. So yeah, I mean, I think people are starting to come around on the PS5 Pro. They're starting to feel better about it. Rich is panicking in the chat. He says, MBG, this is not good. We need Dark Outlaw. I don't know that we need Dark Outlaw, Rich. Like, what if their game was a dumpster fire, bro? Like, do we need Dark Outlaw? Do we really need them? Listen, I'm assuming we're going to get more information because this is the second PlayStation Studio to shut down in like 2 months. So I'm assuming we're going to get more info. It's on IGN, and the difference is actually quite interesting. The PS5 Pro actually beat PC on some occasions, like ray tracing and some lighting and loading. Are you kidding me? Damn. All right, well, maybe I'll check. Yeah, we could probably check that out tomorrow. I can't really extend the stream much longer. I got off to a very late start today. But try to remind me, Kyle Say Stuff. If you tune into my stream tomorrow, maybe I can check that out at some point. I might have to. I mean, I don't know if there's minimal news, you know, that could be something we check out together. I bet you Factions was not a dumpster fire. Oh, no, I agree with that. Apparently, everything we heard is Factions was good. Factions was good. But, guys, I think that is going to do it. MBG posted in the general and exact settings chart in the Discord. Let me check. Yeah, there. Yeah, that I don't even know how to read. God, this is like an overwhelming chart. PS5 Pro performance, model quality medium, texture quality high, shadow quality high, ray tracing on, lighting quality high. Seems like the balanced mode has a lot of things set to ultra. I'm just glad to see that devs are actually, you know, I'm just glad to see devs are actually utilizing the PlayStation 5 Pro hardware. But guys, yeah, that's going to wrap up today's stream. I think I'm going to cap it at about the 3-hour mark. We pretty much got to all the topics I wanted to cover today. So before I head out, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to tune in to Press X Podcast once again. I want to emphasize once more that the schedule should be fine after today. I mean, I could see maybe one more or probably one more day at most where it might be thrown off. But today was pretty much the last day for all the work that had to be done in this room and in this area. So we should be back to a just regular schedule going forward. Okay. So, just, yeah, Ray, thank you for that. Ray dropped the link to our Discord server in the chat. If you're not part of our Discord, feel free to join it. You don't have to be a member or anything. I just ask you to, be respectful and follow the rules and just be kind. Do night streams. Dude, I don't know, man. I rarely do night streams. But hey, I'm doing a later than normal stream today. But yeah, we're probably going to be back on the normal schedule. Before we go, though, we have a super chat from Baldy McNosehair. Love that name. MBG, what are your thoughts on the Epic Games layoffs? So I will tell you, I'm going to only give you a very quick thought on that. But if you're interested in hearing my extended thoughts, when the timestamps are up for this podcast, I did talk about that as a dedicated topic early in the stream. So you can come back and check that out. But just to be very quick about it, I think it is the beginning of a massive decline for Fortnite. I think Fortnite's reign of terror, not terror, but I think Fortnite's reign and dominance is coming to an end. And this is the beginning of that. However, I fear that it's to make way for something worse. Possibly Roblox, maybe something we don't see yet. But yeah, I think Fortnite's era, Fortnite will never go away, but its era of being number one and being top dog, I think it's coming to an end. So yeah, if you want to hear me talk more about that, like I said, come back to the stream once it's over and the timestamps are up. You can watch that whole segment. But yeah, guys, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you taking any time to check out any of my content. And I also want to extend a very big thank you to everybody who supported the channel directly. I do want to make sure that I didn't miss any other direct donations. Okay, we're caught up on that. If you dropped any member gifts, thank you so much for that. If you renewed your membership or are a paying member, thank you. If you dropped any super chats or direct donations, thank you. I can only do what I do here because of that, because you guys make it possible. We're completely fan funded. If it wasn't for you guys supporting directly, none of this would be happening. So a big shout out to this community. And I also want to make sure to give a special shout out to Devil Shooter, who does the timestamps for the streams. I know a lot of people really appreciate those timestamps. So if you see Devil Shooter in the comments with those timestamps, give him some thanks, show him some love. I know he appreciates it. The timestamps for this stream might be a little wonky. I don't know. I don't know if Devil Shooter's here right now. He may have thought I wasn't streaming today. But yeah, thank you, Devil Shooter, for what you do. And the only other thing I'm going to ask you to do is make sure you hit that like button as you're heading out. Big Tech, you like the room? I'm glad you like it, man. Yeah, I've been seeing. It's funny because I've been streaming in this room for like a couple days, but I know people are a little bit late to it, or they're going to see it at a different time. And yeah, I just want to let you guys know, like, I really love this room. This room I think is like a literal physical representation of how far we've come. I showed you guys some before pictures of this basement, but trust me when I tell you that going back to December of 2025, which is not that long ago, but December 2025, none of this existed in this space right now. None of it. There was no ceiling. There were no walls. There's nothing. It was just cinder blocks and like an ugly gray concrete floor, and there was junk everywhere, and it was a disaster. I said this earlier, but I'm still in disbelief of what, and massive shout out to my father-in-law for, he pretty much did most of it, and shout out to Mrs. MBG. She painted the walls and stuff, and shout out to you guys, because, it wasn't something that was just, it required some financing, some money to get it done. And I appreciate the support. But yeah, I'm very, very, very happy with this new setup, and it's definitely given me a renewed sense of motivation and, excitement to be able to, have a nice little streaming area, a nice work area, and a gaming area. Cats appreciate it too. So I'm glad you like it, Big Tech. And yeah, thank you guys. Oh, there he is. Devil Shooter's here. He says I'm working on it. Well, thank you, Devil Shooter. I appreciate that, man. All right. Yeah, that's going to wrap it up. Rich Rod, stay crazy, but not too crazy. That's it. I'm going to go eat dinner and I think get a workout in. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm like choking here. So I know it's time to wrap it up. All right, guys, go check out my news video that I put out today. If you haven't already, show that some support. Hit that like button, and I will catch you guys tomorrow with another episode of Press X Podcast. What am I eating? I'm not sure. I assume something with pasta, since I had to open a pasta sauce jar. That's it. All right, guys. I will catch you in the next one. Until then, take care, everyone.